She pointed to Meg and then used her thumb to cut across her throat, signaling him he better fix it or else. Pepper flung his half-smoked cigar and walked towards the tables, grumbling under his breath. Meg was busy sketching as Pepper approached from behind. He glanced over her shoulder and saw what she was drawing. The pain, hurt, and sorrow she poured into it struck him. He felt her pain. "I know what it feels like. I lost my wife and kids too. I'm sorry for being such a butt." Meg stopped drawing and wiped away a tear before it fell. She looked up and noticed Jesse hitting on some girl. "Why don't we make that Jack jealous?" Pepper held out his hand to her. She looked at his extended hand and then up into his blue eyes. He was sincere. This strange, edgy, older hitman was being soft for her. She placed her hand in his and rose from her seat. Pepper led her to the dance floor and danced with her. "You don't look like the dancing type," she whispered. "I'm not, but it is like fighting, and I can definitely fight." He chuckled. Meg glanced down at their feet a moment. "What about you? How did you meet Giselle?" Pepper asked. "My father and younger brother are barons of Slovakia." "Really? You are royalty? You don't act like it," Pepper added. Meg chuckled a bit. "I suppose not. My brother and I are sort of the black sheep of our family. I like to run off and do my own thing. Meanwhile Hans, well, he likes to show off his riches. I mean, he is not a snob, but sometimes it comes off as it. Our father is trying his best to teach him the ways of a baron, but sometimes he just likes the lifestyle more than the responsibility." She explains. "He sounds interesting. Maybe I should meet him one day." "Meeting the family? Isn't that a relationship thing?" Meg rose a brow. "Look, Pepper, you are nice and all, but you are not really my type." She sighed. "I respect that, but we can still be friends." Pepper shrugged. "You seem to be a nice gal and well, I could always use more friends." Pepper reassured Meg of his intentions and extended his invitation to become friends. Chapter 7. Over the next 10 years, Meg finally trusted Pepper enough to allow him to meet her brother Hans. Pepper was used to dealing with rich folks, but Hans was different. He did act a bit posh most times, but he was a nice guy. He treated others with respect and was very generous with his money. Even at parties when all eyes were on him, he included people in the limelight. He was laid back and enjoyed all kinds of company. Meg was more reserved and shyer, but her brother was quite the opposite. Baron Hans Dubveck and his sister Baroness Megara Dubveck come from a long line of royalty. Rich old money, as Gigi put it to Pepper. One night next to the Dyer place, Hans explained about his to Pepper. Demi had become friends with Meg and him, so the 18-year-old decided to let Pepper in on their family history. His family was in royalty dating back to medieval times. His grandfather and some other relatives fought back against the Nazis in WW2. During World War II, Slovakia was a client state of Nazi Germany and a member of the Axis powers. It participated in the war against the Soviet Union and deported most of its Jewish population. However, the Dubvecks did not ally themselves with Germany. They helped the Jews hide as well as others. The family sided with the Allies' powers and was quite known for hunting Nazis. It was quite easy since most of the Nazi powers thought the family was on their side, but once it was revealed they were not, it was too late. Many times, the Nazi families attended the Castle Dubveck, only to meet their death. That is where the Dubvecks acquired a good bit of wealth as well. One night Kurt Himmler would pay the family a visit. Kurt was the son of Heinrich Himmler. Heinrich was interested in mysticism and the occult from an early age. He tied this interest into his racist philosophy, looking for proof of Aryan and Nordic racial superiority from ancient times. When his son Kurt reached adulthood, he passed most of his knowledge on to him. Like a sponge, Kurt soaked up and fed off the knowledge that not only his father gave him, but his true power and knowledge came from Freya. The fallen angel is also known as the goddess of magic in the Norse pantheon. Freya gifted Kurt with greater knowledge than his father in exchange for his worship and loyalty. Soon Kurt dabbled and became a great necromancer. Hitler was pleased and supported the idea. Kurt would give Hitler the Nazi undead soldiers, as well as the ability to control the supernatural to aid in the fight against his enemies. The necromancer attended the Dubvex castle only to be killed and tossed out into the woods. Lucky for him, Freya revived him. Kurt made his way back to the rest of the Nazi party to inform them of the Dubvex betrayal. The Nazis wanted to get rid of the Jews as well as Christianity, and this was a major reason why the judges became involved. The Nazis believe it was weak, and they needed to reintroduce the old savage pagan beliefs. To create the super race, the Ubermen after their deities. To bring in the next 1,000 years of ruling. Kurt was put in charge by his father. The necromancer and his army tried to go against the Dubvex and sack the castle, but the judges and a few allied forces stopped them. That day Kurt pledged he would kill every Dubvex and end the bloodline. The necromancer soon became inhuman due to the black magic Freya gave him. All the rituals and magic he practiced turned his soul black, and demons soon possessed his body. To this day Hans and his family are fighting the supernatural forces run by Kurt. Pepper listened to Hans's story with interest. When he was finished, Pepper began telling Hans of his life as well. The two had a common enemy, Kurt. The same Kurt that was with Ares in Vietnam trying to open the veil to let the darkness in. You know, that reminds me a few weeks ago when I was in that club downtown. I heard talk of a guy who worked for Ares. He was a small arms dealer. Oh. What was his name? Hans took a sip of his drink and tried to think of the name of the man. The fire flames made his pale skin almost glow orange. Pepper ran a hand over his now bald head as he adjusted himself in the large leather seat. I cannot recall his name, but if you would like to accompany me to the club tomorrow night, we can figure it out together. Pepper was a bit surprised Hans wanted to help him out with his cause. It did, however, make sense. If Kurt and Ares were still working together, then both of them had a common enemy. Pepper nodded in agreement at Hans's proposal. All right, it settled it. I will have my driver swing by to pick you up. Hans held out his hand to shake Pepper's. Pepper slowly sat up and took the young man's hand and shook it firmly. It was a bit odd going on a mission with the male. He was barely a man. Also, Pepper had no idea how Hans would act on the battlefield. Was he just like all the other rich folks and had others do his dirty work? Or did he get his hands dirty? The next night, darkness settled over the city, causing the sun's light to be replaced by man-made lights. Most of the normal working humans made their way inside to prepare for the next day of a basic 9 to 5, while others left to have a night on the town. The night was when the humans and supernatural mixed. During the day the supernaturals did their best to hide their nature, but the night was their time to roam free. Most humans in the city knew this, or on a subconscious level knew it. Others were not aware, or they just didn't care. The rich folklore of the town was slowly diminishing over time, and the monsters became more of a friend than an enemy to fear too much. Hans's driver parked in the back alley of a large warehouse. The club Hans spoke of was an exclusive one. You had to be very rich and powerful to know about it or even enter. The two men exited the car and walked towards the bar door of the building. The young Hans knocked 3 times, then the door slowly opened. The large Sasquatch-looking male glared over at Pepper and then down at the young Hans. Hans kept a smug grin on his face the whole time. He was not afraid of anything. The security guard recognized Hans and stepped aside for the two to enter. As Hans walked straight inside without care, Pepper had his guard up. He scanned the low-lit club as he made his way inside after his young friend. Humans and supernatural beings alike were scattered around the club. The atmosphere was more laid back and sociable. Only a few were dancing on the small dance floor. A cat-like female was serving drinks behind one of the bars, as a human female tried to get close to an unamused vampire. Across from them sat a pair of werewolves and a half-human half-snake being. Hans took a right towards a hallway and down a single flight of stairs. Hans then walked down another long hallway towards the door at the end. The door opened before Hans could knock. A tall African female deity greeted them. She wore a fancy yellow pantsuit that complemented her dark skin color beautifully. Around her neck was a large necklace resembling that of ancient Egyptian jewelry. Ah, Bastet. Hans took her slender cat claw-like hands and kissed the top of it. Her golden eyes glowed, and for a moment Pepper could see past the glamour at her cat-like face of the fallen angel. Little Hans, what is a human like you doing back in here? I thought your family hated us supernatural. My dear Bastet, we do not hate all of your kind, more like do not agree. Our main enemies are just the undead ones. I can absolutely tolerate a beautiful fallen one like yourself. You are different from your father, he would have had me strung up. Sometimes I think he wishes to become a judge. She chuckled. Who is your friend? Her golden cat eyes glanced towards Pepper. He smells of Aries? She rose a brow in distaste. My feelings exactly, Lady Pepper spoke up. He is actually trying to take out his father and his father's associates. Hans kept hold of Bastet's hand and led her inside of her own office, explaining the reason he and his friend were there. You see, a few weeks ago I overheard a zombie-like humanoid speaking about selling undetectable weapons. He had dropped Ares's name, and well, I was hoping you would know who he was and where to find him. Hans let Bastet go as she walked back towards her desk. I see. Her face frowned slightly as she reached up to unhook an earring. She pressed it into her desk and a few screens popped up. She then placed the earring back on her dark earlobes and turned the screen so the men could see. The only reason I am helping you is because I don't like that sort of business talk in my club. This is a relaxing social area, and the only business being held should be my own. Bastet used her hand to telepathically move the grainy surveillance film forward. A few moments later Hans pointed. Ah, there. That is the one right there. He pointed to the screen and Bastet paused the film. Felix Wormrot. I should have known. Ares has stooped low, almost graveyard low for this one. He lives out in the cemetery downtown. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. Thank you for allowing us to speak with you and gain answers. My friend and I will take care of the zombie. Your mission is a blood-filled one. Going against your one father and own kind. Bastet spoke to the silent Pepper. He stopped being my father when he killed my wife and kids, and as far as my own kind, I will kill for the right price. I will keep that in mind if I ever need the services. Bastet gave Pepper a warm smile. Great, I hate to be leaving so soon, but it is almost twilight, leaving us not much time till morning, Hans explains. The two men exit the office and the club quickly. They then make their way downtown towards the cemetery. Upon entering the cemetery, Hans and Pepper make their way towards the building in the middle of the large field. As they passed rows of graves, Pepper could see shadows and creatures jumping in and out of different spots. Not my ideal place to be at this moment. Hans frowns as he walks down the path. You know, I met Death once. He was the one who told me of Ares and Kurt's plans. Pepper admitted. The Death Angel or the Death God or? Hans asked. Death? The Death? Hans asked, more excited. Death. Like the entity itself. He looked like us. He was pale white with semi-long black hair. A bit ominous, but he was Death. Pepper replied. I see. The most ominous thing I met was an angel that helped the judges and my family on a mission on time. Hans replied. Judges, huh? Never really looked into them. Pepper shrugged it off a bit. He didn't really have the time to investigate these judges. The way he explained it was he was in God's army with God-given powers. Like how the supernaturals get their power from the other side, they get theirs by God. Hans explains. They used to just slay all the supernatural beings, but now if they are humanoid, they try and rehabilitate them or send them to jail. He explained that if they died it would just leave a dead human, and the thing giving them power would leave unless it was a fallen angel. They give no mercy to them. So, they would try and rehabilitate me? Pepper laughed. Aren't you and your family supposed to support and be on their side? Why are you helping me and hanging out in clubs like that? He asked the same question Bastet did. He was curious if Hans was truthful to the Egyptian fallen angel, or if he had a different reason. Like I told her, I am not as black and white as they are. I am still on the fence about it all. The two men reached the building and to their surprise, it was unlocked. Another shocker was that Wormroot's name was on the door. He obviously owned the graveyard, a zombie arms dealer in Gravitigger. Hans chuckled. Ironic, isn't it? Pepper picked the lock and held the door open for his young friend. Truth in plain sight, I suppose. Hans shrugged it off and walked into the dark building. The only source of light was coming from the street lamps outside, as well as a light room up ahead. I guess our dear Wormroot is taking customers. Yeah, well, he ain't gonna like us very much. Pepper and Hans made their way quietly towards the lit-up room. Along the way, they passed up walls of crypts showing names and pictures of the deceased. Pepper had a hand on his gun that sat on his waist as he approached the door. He had never run into a zombie before, but he had seen movies. How could a rotting corpse, brainless, and wandering around wanting to eat people be capable of selling weapons? Hans reached for the door this time and flung it open. The male sitting behind the desk dropped his phone quickly and looked up. Flex Wormroot? Hans asked. Yeah? Who is asking? The small male spoke with a raspy voice. We have some questions for you, Pepper added. I am legal. I have paperwork and I never eat the living. He yelled as he dug in his desk drawer. Pepper pulled out his gun and aimed it at the zombie. He wasn't sure what he was digging for. Flex held his hands up in shock. No need for that. I am just looking for my papers. The zombie was a bit nervous, and the men could tell. We only have a few questions for you. Answer them and we will be on our way. You two aren't judges, huh? Cops? Flex asked. No. Hans took a seat in front of the desk, while Pepper continued to stand pointing his gun at the man. Can you tell your friend to lower his gun? He is making me nervous. Flex glanced towards Pepper and then made sweet eyes at Hans. He hoped Hans would help him out. Pepper does what Pepper wants. Hans chuckled. I don't want you feasting on my brains, Pepper spoke up. That is only in movies. Flex rolled his eyes. As long as we zombies are fed, we won't go feral. The movies get everything wrong. Even vampires. He rolled his eyes and eased up a bit. Pepper lowered his gun but kept it upholstered and by his side. Now that the formalities are out of the way, will you cooperate and answer our questions? For your sake, I hope so. Ms. Bastard was none too happy with you doing business in her club. Oh, it was one time. I will bring her a saucer of milk. Flex cursed. We are not here for her. I need to know where Ares is hiding himself as well as his current operations. Pepper asked in a harsh tone. Ares? Why do you think I know about him? Pepper walked over and slammed the man's head on his desk. I didn't come all the way out here to play games. You answer my questions, or I put a bullet in your head. Movies or not, I am sure that still works for killing you. Pepper pointed the gun at his head as he held onto the back of his collar with his other hand. Hans just sat there quietly. All right, Ares is out west. Chicago, I believe. He is setting up operations there. He and his Amazons and generals. The zombie told Pepper everything he knew. For a follower of Ares, you are quite the wuss, Hans spoke up. I just work for him on the side, it is extra money, you know. Pepper let Flex go and smacked him behind the head hard. Stay out of that cat's club. And if you tip Ares off, I will come back here. Pepper warned before the two walked out of the room. Pepper and Hans made their way back towards the car. It was almost dawn, and the two men were dead tired. I suppose you will be going back to the States? Hans asked. Yeah, you and your sister should come along. Thank you kindly, but I must decline the offer. My father wishes for me to stay closer to home. He wants me to continue my studies and training. I understand. Your father is a great man. You are too, Hans. You will be a great baron and a great hunter one day. Thank you, my friend, but may I give a word of advice? I know I am far younger than you, but don't let this revenge quest stop you from living your life. What is that saying? Stop and smell the roses? Hans spoke with his thick European accent. English was his second language, but he spoke it as if it was his first. I will try and remember that. Pepper smiled as he took out a can of tobacco snuff and stuffed it into his bottom lip. At least stay for the night. Meg will want to say her goodbyes, I am sure, Hans asked. All right. I am sure gonna miss her, and you too, my friend. Well, this isn't goodbye forever. You have to come back and celebrate my coronation ceremony in a few years. Hans jokes, but at the same time, he was serious. Pepper was rough around the edges, but he was a great friend to Hans. The two shared a lot in common. Both not only had the same enemy, but they both walked a path not many do. Just please do not turn into the very monster you hunt. That is what my father continues to teach me. Hans glanced over towards Pepper, who was watching the sunrise. Sometimes you gotta get a little dirty in war. Hans Pepper sighed deeply as his memories of past battles and mistakes came to mind. Chapter 8. Early 2000s. It was Y2K, and the human world was all in an uproar about the new year that was coming up in a few days. The fear of the computer possibly going crazy had some thinking it was going to be the end of the world. Humans were so gullible. Most demons enjoyed feeding on the fear, though, fed the darkness ever growing. Pepper had been hunting Ares Amazons since he arrived back in the States. Demons and other agents of that army were far from his mind. The demi had been chasing dead-end trails since he arrived. The old locations as well as the places that the zombie told him of were no good. He knew Chicago was the right state. Pepper could feel the effects of Ares all around. The troubles the humans faced along with the battle charged the air with signs that the god of war was up to something. Pepper had finally caught a break when one of his old bounty hunting buddies reached out to him. Drake Delano was an ex-army soldier who took to the hunting business when he was kicked out of the military. The druid and demi meet through a few people they hunted together. Not only were they allies in that occupation, but Drake often confided in Pepper to help him deal with his military past. The older soldier knew all too well the effects of war on the mind and body. Pepper sort of took up a big brother relationship with Drake, and he was glad to hear from him. The druid asked Pepper to come by his new boss's home. The boss, Mr. M, not only needed the help from the demigod, but would have some information he would value in his hunt for Ares and the Amazons. Pepper arrived at the large home outside of the city and was greeted by his friend Drake. Drake was younger than Pepper, but looked to be about the late 30s in human years. He was of average height with a slightly muscular build. His blonde hair was slicked back, and he had a small, well-groomed beard. A new addition to the male was his attire and glasses. Pepper was used to seeing the young buck in jeans and motorcycle attire. Now he wore slacks and a pullover polo. "I see this new job has changed you," Pepper teased. "All right, old man. I see you are still a butthole." Drake shook his friend's hand and smiled. "So, why did you drag me all the way out here? You know I am a busy man." "Yeah, busy chasing your tail in circles." Drake walked alongside Pepper towards the entrance of the small mansion. "Well, at least I am moving and chasing. You got me all the way out here putting me off my trail." Pepper kept a smirk on his face as he looked at the place before him. "Believe me, you are going to want to hear this." Drake opened the front door and led Pepper into the home. The mansion was about 3 stories high and decorated in the Old English look. It was large, but not as big as other homes he had been in like the Barons and Cortez. Drake led him to the den where a man dressed all in black stood. His hair was also blonde like Drake's, but he wore it short and styled with a slight wave. He looked around Pepper's age, but by his eyes, you could tell he was older. He was charming with blue eyes and high cheekbones. "Mr. M, this is Platon, or Pepper as he is known as." Drake introduced the two and they shook hands. Pepper Kindle looked at Drake sideways. The Drake he knew used to be a wild one, a bad boy, and now he was polished and proper. "Nice to meet you, Pepper. Thank you for coming by to speak with me. Would you like a drink?" Mr. M offered. "Yes, please." Pepper followed the man towards the 2 couches that faced each other. Each man sat across from one another, and Drake sat in the leather air chair at the end. A butler brought the 3 men a drink and promptly left the room, closing the large doors as he left. "Drake has been telling me things about you. How you two used to work together as well as your accomplishments. Has he now?" "Drake is a good kid." "Yes, that is why I had hired him to be my second in command. He looks over my books and security quite well. I trust him greatly and hope I can trust you as well." "Trust is earned and given over time. How can I know I can trust you? I don't mean to be rude, but I just met you." "Drake, I know, but you, sir, I don't." Pepper tilted his glass a bit towards the man called Mr. M and waited for a response. Mr. M kept a charming and warm smile on his face. "I agree, Let's start with me telling you about myself, shall I? Not many know my real name nor my story, but if I am to have to help me, I want to be honest and upfront. I know as much as Drake knows about you. He has told me quite the stories of you and your missions. I know you are at war with your father Ares, and well, we both have him as a common enemy. Mr. M paused to take a long drink before he continued. My name is Mavis. I was a son to one of the 13 royal human bloodlines that serve Lucifer but left. I still practiced magic, but only to shield me and my wife and son from my enemies. I run a few businesses helping and investing in other supernatural beings. I try to help them make a name for themselves and businesses. An entrepreneur of sorts. Mostly dealing with those who wish to come out of the clutches of Lucifer and his people, but are too afraid to go to the judges for help. Going to them and God, well, we would have to give up a lot of our powers and ways, and most don't want that. So, how does this involve me? Pepper asked impatiently. You are searching for the Amazons. Well, I have a few stalking my family. One has attacked my son Grayson already. You want them so you can find Ares, and I want them gone. Away from my family, home, and businesses. I will be sure to add you to the payroll for your skills and aid. No man does something for free, especially if he is good at it. I see why you like this guy Drake. I'm in. Pepper down the rest of his drink and stood to shake Mavis's hand. Drake took Pepper on a tour of Mr. M's home and showed him a room he could stay in. He explained there was a magical force field around the place, and the land surrounding was fairly safe, for now. As they made their way towards the barkyard, Pepper caught a glimpse at Grayson. He was around Drake's age surprisingly. Pepper figured the kid to be young, but he was just young at heart. He watched the male approach them holding a pigeon. He was very handsome. He was tall with a muscular build like his father, but his hair was brown with matching brown eyes. He also wore a grin, but it was much more mischievous. Hey Drakey, who is your boyfriend? Grayson had a sassy tone with a straight face. Pepper knew he was a jokester. Not Pepper's favorite type of person to deal with. Pepper could have a laugh and tease every now and then, but most of the time he was serious and rough. This is Pepper. He is going to be helping us find to take down the Amazons. You mean the Xena-looking woman who jumped me in town? Oh wow. Good luck with that. She and her Wonder Woman friends are going to turn you into a mechanical bull and ride you out of town. Especially with that limp you have, old man, you don't stand a chance. Grayson pointed to Pepper's knee, and Pepper glared. A big mouth, I see. I don't like big mouths. The last guy who spat at me like that, I almost killed him. Almost. Well, almost isn't really threatening like you think. Being a son of Ares, you would be a bit more intimidating. Oh, hey Drake. Grayson quickly turned to Drake and helped up the pigeon. I found Mr. Peeps. He almost drowned in the fountain trying to eat a bug. Drake chuckled a bit. He was used to Grayson's weird and sometimes humorous ways, but he knew Pepper, however, would not like the young male. Pepper did his best to be nice, but the way Grayson was coming off was making Pepper upset. He rambled on and joked about stuff that Pepper could care less about. Finally, Drake broke them away from Grayson and made their way back towards the home. What about you, Drake? How have you been besides the job? Pepper asked. Well, I am engaged, Drake replied. Really? Who tamed that heart? She is a baker and owns her own business. Her name is Ashley, and she has 2 boys, and I just found out we are expecting a girl soon. Oh wow. That is something. Little Drake starting a family. Remember, family first. Pepper knew what it was like to lose a family. Every moment counts. Remember to spend it with them. Pepper added. I intend to. Mr. M is going to hire someone to help me out, so I am not here as much. Drake added as he showed Pepper to his room. This Mavis, are you 100% sure about him? 'Cause the last thing I need is for him to backstab me and hand me over to Ares. Now Pepper, would I ever put you in harm's way? Pepper just glared. I mean intentionally. Mavis is straight. He has been like a father to me. Got me out of some dark times. Sorry I wasn't around, Drake. Sometimes I let the mission get to me. It's all right, Pepper. You still are a good friend and brother to me. No matter what. Get settled in and we can talk over dinner, okay? Drake opened the large door for Pepper, and the demigod entered. All right. See you in an hour. Chapter 9. A few weeks later, Pepper was told that the Amazon stalking Mavis would be located in a local biker bar. Drake was supposed to ride out there with him, but he had to take his fiancée Ashley to the hospital. Pepper understood completely why Drake couldn't come, but he needed to get a move on going after the warrior women of Ares. Not only would it help him out on his life mission of revenge against the god of war, but it also helps his current employer Mavis. It was rare for Pepper to trust someone he just met, but Drake swore on his life that Mavis was trustworthy. It was a bit odd, being that most rich men like him were greedy with power and filled with perverse secrets, but Mavis wanted out of that wicked life. He used his money to help others as well as protect his family. Pepper found it sincere, and that was the driving force that convinced Pepper to help. Pepper pulled up to the small bar outside of town. It was a rural area and not many buildings or homes were around. The neon open sign in the window flashes along with other beer-related signs. The bar was booming as people entered and exited out of it. It was not that strange of a place to find the lowlifes Pepper often chased. They hide out in the open with humans, and populated places like these often. As Pepper made his way inside, he could sense that it was going to be a long night of either fighting or tracking down the females he was after. As soon as Pepper walked into the small bar, the small crowd went quiet. It was like a scene out of an old western when a lawman would come to the saloon, and all the criminals would turn to look. Pepper glanced over towards the pool table and noticed 3 women holding pool sticks. 2 of the women wore short red dresses with a golden waist corset. The main female wore a red pantsuit with a leopard corset. The 2 women were of Greek descent with brown-colored skin and black hair, while the main female was blonde. As she walked closer, Pepper recognized the woman. It was Lacey. I don't believe it, you are still alive? Lacey scoffed at Pepper. Pepper spit a wad of tobacco on the wood floor of the bar. This is exactly what I needed right now. He spoke to himself out loud and in a sarcastic tone. I see you are still whoring it for Ares. What does he make you? A captain? Pepper asked. How did you guess? Lacey gave an unamused smile. The hooker leopard print is what gave it away. A cue ball went flying towards him, but he ducked in time. It whizzed past him and hit a man at another table. The man landed with a thud on the ground. He is gonna feel that in the morning, and you won't live till then, Lacey growled as she broke the stick in her hand in half. Oh, on behalf of my own interests and that of Mr.M, I am obligated to kick all of your butts, and most likely put an end to your life. By the law and under my bounty hunter's code, I must announce. If anyone wishes to not be involved or hurt during this conflict, please exit the bar. Pepper glanced around and waited. A few men go up and leave, stepping over the knocked-out man on the floor. The bartender just ducked under the bar, and another man quickly drew a pistol. Pepper shot him with his handgun before turning to fire at the three women. They all dodged his bullets before advancing on him. The woman must have had the Ares blessings like Pepper due to their unnatural speed. Lacey was the first to contact Pepper. He was able to dodge one of the pieces of a pool stick, but the other came crashing in his ribs. The wood shattered, causing him to let out a quick scream. He uppercut Lacey, sending her wobbling back. Another Amazon took her place, swinging at Pepper with a whole stick. Pepper quickly grabbed the stick and tossed it in the Amazon out the window. Of course, someone was going to fly through the glass windows. It was a given in all bar fights. The other Amazon took a cheap shot at Pepper's right side. She went to swing again, but Pepper blocked her punches and kicks. These women were highly trained, but Pepper was older and more skilled in battle. The only one who caused him any concern was Lacey. The two were equally matched, and she knew this. That is why she let her ladies wear Pepper down before she would try and attack again. I see you have picked up a few new moves since we last fought, Pepper and Lacey antagonized Pepper. Pepper just glared at her with his fists raised. He was in no mood to joke around. Lacey advanced and the two fought. The punches and kicks were made with equal force as they tore up that bar. Pepper did not care if he used to have feelings for her. She was his enemy now. One more pawn and minion in Ares's army. Pepper took a hard knee to her stomach and brought his elbow down on her back. Lacey fell to her knees. Just as Pepper was going to knee her in the face, she lifted her hands up to block it. She then wrapped her arm around his leg and flipped him on his back. With speed, she jumped on top of him and started punching him with fury. Just as she was about to land another blow, she stopped with her fist raised when she heard clapping. Lacey kept her eyes focused on Pepper's bloody face as she breathed heavily. She was poised and ready to strike, but stood still for an odd reason. Pepper glanced to see who was clapping and had this power over her. It was Ares. He now looked like a middle-aged biker. He was ripped and had a thick black beard. Well, I see the old lovers are at it again. Pepper, didn't you learn from last time about love? Ares teased the demi. Pepper's anger roared inside, but he was trapped under Lacey. You have two options now. 1. I can forgive you and you return to me. Or 2. I have Lacey beat your skull in. Why are you so hard up for me returning to you? I disobeyed you. Killed tons of your men, not to mention almost killed you. On top of spoiling your plans over and over, I trained you, raised you, gave you my blood to make you into this super soldier. That kind of time and effort I wish to not have wasted. You will be in our army. Ares growled. No. Pepper grunts and Lacey reaches down to wrap her hand around his throat to hold him. I will spend every last moment of my pathetic life to not only destroy you but your army and your plans. This infuriated Ares. The god raised his foot and began to stomp on Pepper's leg. As it cracked, Pepper let out a holler in pain. Let this be a reminder to you. Never will it heal, and forever will you go on limping. Lame and deathless. Ares snapped his fingers, and Lacey stood up to follow him out. Ares disappeared while Lacey walked towards her bike outside. The sound of the motorcycle drowned Pepper's yells for a moment. As the Amazon drove off, Pepper lay on the floor as he held his leg, writhing in pain. Suddenly Grayson, accompanied by a tall, young, dirty blonde-haired male, burst into the bar. The young man saw Pepper on the floor and rushed towards him. Sergeant Pepper, this doesn't look good. Grayson winces at each scream. Just help me up, idiot. Pepper screams. Grayson kneels to look over Pepper. There is no way you can go after them in this state. The man spoke up. Who are you to tell me? I'm Luca, a judge in training. I was called to watch this family. Anyone who leaves a family like Mavistos is watched. The judges also will aid them to change if they wish. Luca's thick Italian accent was drowned out by Pepper's screams. He reached over and gripped Grayson's shirt. He shook him a couple of times and made the young man look at him. You help me. Do some magic juju that you know on this leg so I can kill the wench. I can't condone this magic. Magic is against gods. But Luca was cut off by Pepper cursing at him to shut up. We fight dirty like Ares, but devil's power against devil's power will not work, Platon. Luca tried to continue to speak, but Grayson interrupted. I will help you. In no way do my actions reflect my father. So do not hold it against him or my family. He spoke towards Luca. You help these people and call into whoever you have to. I will deal with Pepper. Grayson helped Pepper up. The demi screamed as the younger male helped him to his feet. Grayson almost carried Pepper past Luca and out the bar. Grayson helped Pepper in the back of his SUV and tore open Pepper's jean pant leg. What was all that about? Pepper was still in pain, but did his best to push past it. Dad wished for the judges to help us. He said they would give us extra protection, but they have rules. No magic, no magic. We must renounce all that and stay on the straight path. I don't if I can. I was raised in this. My father was a higher-ranking wizard, and for him to give it all up. Grayson rubbed his hands together and began to chant. He is just looking out for his family. Pepper watched Grayson begin to try and heal his leg. It healed up to a point. There was no longer blood nor bruising, but Pepper could still feel slight pain. It was like a bone that did not want to set and heal properly. That is the best I can do. Grayson lifted his hands from Pepper's leg. That is good enough. Now drive me. She is on this road on a bike. Pepper instructed. Grayson closed the back door and quickly hopped in the driver's seat. He started up the SUV and raced down the highway. It was not long before the SUV caught up with the motorcycle. Pepper screamed curses and pointed to it from the back seat. That is her. Get her. Grayson knew his vehicle could not keep up with the bike. Normally motorcycles were faster than any normal vehicle, but Grayson was far from normal. He waved his hand, and the SUV roared forward. Pepper had never seen this side of this kid. He was normally cracking jokes and throwing sass, but now he was determined to help Pepper run down this Amazon. When your family is endangered, Pepper figured people change as he did. Grayson pushed the bumper of the car against the back of the motorcycle. Lacey was not prepared, and the bike flipped. Grayson stopped the SUV right before it ran over the bike and watched the Amazon roll across the highway. Pepper did his best to get out of the back seat quickly, but the pain and limp made it hard. Pepper grunted in pain as he hobbled over towards the Amazon laying in the road. Thought you could pull one over on me. Beat me and leave me to waste away in self-pity. Lacey rolled over on her belly and tried to crawl back to her bike. She was covered in blood and loose asphalt from the road. Pepper steadied himself and aimed his gun down at her. You deserve much more than a quick death, but I don't have time for it. He shot her in the back of her head. Pepper then hoisted his gun and limped back to the SUV. This injury he would have to get used to. The way it slowed him down, as well as the constant pain, would stop anyone from continuing onward, but Pepper was determined. Nothing was going to stop him from taking down Ares and his people. He used that determination and rage to push him forward. Grayson helped Pepper back in the truck. The young man then turned the SUV around and headed back to his home. It was silent halfway through the ride, but the remaining half, Grayson broke the silence. "I know you are already helping my family, but I have a small favor to ask." Grayson glanced at Pepper. Pepper nodded, signaling him to continue. "I can help you out as much as you need with that leg, but I need you to find someone for me. My half-sister." "You want me to find your half-sister and do what?" "I just want to know she is alive and possibly reach out to her one day. My mother had a child previously before she and my father were together, and I would like to meet her. My mom claimed to have had an affair with Death before she met Dad, but I am not sure that is true." He chuckled. Grayson reached in his pocket to pull out a piece of paper. "This birth certificate was all I could find of her existence. Mom left her with a family not long after she was born. Something about the baby would not be safe with her because of what she was, as well as my mom's high status as a witch. After she gave the baby away, she met my dad. They soon married and later had me. Mom recently revealed this to me because she feared my father's family would find her and use the other child as leverage against my dad and our family. I always wondered about my sister and would like to at least find her and make sure she is okay and maybe meet her." Pepper unfolded the paper and read over it a bit. "Samara? I will try my best to find her. When I do, I will be in touch. I owe you that much." Pepper agreed. Chapter 10. Current Times. It has been 20 years since Pepper formed an alliance with Mavis the ex-wizard. In that time, he not only formed bonds with that family, but the young judge that helped them, Luca. Pepper was also given the title of godfather to Drake and Ashley's daughter. Pepper spoiled that little girl and often brought her treats when he would stop by to visit them. The last 2 decades were filled with battles and bloodshed. Not just against Ares, but others who tried to step up against Mavis and his family. Pepper was always by their side, defending and aiding them as best as he could. It took years for Pepper to push past the pain in his leg, but eventually, he learned to live with it. Better the constant movement in Grayson's magical pills. It helped the Demi maneuver around. Pepper was grateful and did his best to find Grayson's older sister. At one point he had tracked down the adoptive parents' place of residence, but by the time he arrived, they were deceased. Killed by a supernatural creature, non-doubt one sent by the elites. Pepper was able to recover a picture of the girl, but that was as far as he got. At one point he asked Luca to help. Luca agreed, but later returned to tell Pepper he was not authorized to investigate the matter. Pepper turned all the info over to Grayson. Grayson was grateful for the information and asked Pepper to keep a lookout during missions for her. Pepper had other more important missions, but agreed to keep this one open. The long battle against Ares and his Amazons was a success. Pepper and the Mavis family almost had them exterminated. Only a few remained, but sadly this did not stop Ares from growing in strength in the city of Chicago. Pepper's current mission was tracking down one of Ares's men. He was under the mayor's employment. The man was whispering Ares's plans and control over the mayor, and in return, the mayor bowed and needed the god. The corruption ran deep in the government. Not just in Chicago but the world. How else was the devil going to take over? While tracking this man, Pepper ran into his wife. Normally it would have been a catastrophe. Those women loved their lavish lifestyle and fought tooth and nail to keep them, but this lady was different. She wanted out. Not just for her, but for her children as well. Jessica was her name, and Jessica wanted a different life for her and her kids. To his surprise, the woman knew Pepper and his reputation. She sought him out in order to help them escape. "I don't know how much help I can be, Mrs. Jessica. I am a soldier, not a social worker." "Listen. I know this. Okay. You are the only one who can help me. You know how these people are and how they are on things. I am trying to get divorced because not only is he cheating on me, but he works for that devil. I don't want that life for my kids. The wicked and cutthroat lifestyle we live. It will damage their souls." The woman was close to tears as she explained this to him. Pepper felt bad, but also helpless. He didn't know the first thing about helping a family. He was a killer, a hunter, not a caregiver. "Please, I will pay you anything," she sobbed as she dug into her purse. Pepper sighed. Okay. But you won't have to pay me. I might know someone. Well, I don't know her personally, but I have done a few jobs for her father," he informed the woman. Jessica wipes her tears and waits for him to continue. Eric Holst's daughter Danielle runs a hotel and spa. It caters to everyone, human and supernatural alike. That dragon runs a tight ship and will not allow any violence on her premises. Plus, she is out of reach of Ares. You and your kids will be safe there. Just to convince her will be a chore, I am sure, especially if she is anything like her father. Dragons and their gold lust. I will pay anything and do anything. I don't want those men taking my kids. You know what they do to kids? Pepper knew exactly. Most of them were pedos. They also sacrificed kids to the demons that fueled their powers. Of course, he knew what they did. "Go. Get your things and meet me at this address." Pepper gave Jessica the location of the place where she was to meet Pepper. Jessica was so grateful she wrapped her arms around Pepper and gave him a huge squeeze. Pepper awkwardly stood there and waited for the woman to stop. "Thank you so much, Mr. Platon." As soon as the woman left, Pepper took out his cell phone to give his buddy Luca a call. He knew a mission like this needed backup. The last time he went in alone he was almost killed. Not to mention the prize of a limp leg he received from Daddy Dearest. Even though Luca did not share the same views as him, they did share the same enemy. Plus, Pepper knew he could trust the judge. They had their own moral laws and personal convictions. The only thing Pepper would have to deal with was Luca's preaching to him about certain things, but he knew the Italian only did it out of care. As the demigod made his way towards his car, he gave Luca a call. The phone call was long, but so was the drive downtown to Danielle's hotel. The worst thing about cities was not the constant movement of people, nor the traffic jams, or the violence. To Pepper, it was the constant construction. They were always digging up, building, or rebuilding something. It was a nuisance to him, and Pepper could not stand it. From the looks of it, the same was happening to the hotel. A construction crew littered the outside of the tall building as he approached. The name of the place was Zorus, and it was well known on this side of the country. Pepper did not know exactly he was going to pull this off, but he knew he would not take no for an answer. Upon entering, Pepper lied and told security that he was part of the judges needing to talk to Ms. Holst. It was not a complete lie. He was working with Luca, a judge, but Pepper himself was not there as a judge nor ordered by them. The muscle security was too dumb to ask the right questions and just took Pepper at face value. They lead him to Danielle's office at the top of the large hotel. The place was lavish but inviting to everyone. The bottom 2 floors were the spa area, while the rest of the floors were for guest rooms. Danielle had her office and room on the top floor of the building, so she could overlook the city. The dragon in her high tower of gold was almost cliché, but Danielle worked her power and elegance as to where it not only fit, but screamed luxury everyone else could partake in. It was how she made her money. Supernaturals and humans alike were welcome to come and be pampers for a decent price. Lower class, as well as high-class clients from all over, were welcome. Kings and peasants alike could attend. In the building everyone was equal except Annie, she was queen. The guards knocked twice before entering the large office room. Danielle was behind her desk while a man sat beside the fireplace brooding. Danielle was just as Pepper expected. Arrogant, cutthroat, and beautiful. She spoke to the person on the phone as if she ruled over them. It sounded like she was trying to make a deal on some new land for another hotel. She paced back and forth in her stilettos wearing a high-fashion pantsuit. The brunette was slender, elegant, but stern. Her presence radiated power, and it was what Pepper expected from a dragon shifter. As he approached her desk, he noticed the male at the fireplace. He was dressed all in black with his semi-long hair drawing over his shoulders. He looked like an emo villain brooding over his crappy life decisions. Pepper's attention was soon turned back towards Danielle. She hung up her cell phone and tossed it on the desk. She then sat halfway on the large marble desk and glared at Pepper. "Can I help you?" she asked, crossing her arms. "Official judge business." He glanced at the two men that escorted him in. Danielle used her hand to signal the men to leave him. "Judges? What do the judges want with me? My place is up to code. No rule breaking, no magic, and no fights," she hissed. Pepper waited till the door was shut to proceed to speak. "I need you to allow a woman and her children to stay here. For protection." This piqued the man's interest and he rose from the chair. He walked over toward Danielle and stood behind her. Danielle raised a single brow. Pepper could tell the family resemblance. Eric made a similar face to Pepper once. "Do what?" "This isn't a charity." She spoke harshly. "Not asking for charity." Pepper nonchalantly took a seat in front of her desk. "You are not a judge." "Nope," Pepper replied. The man behind her grew angry. "How dare you come into Danielle's office with lies?" The man went to step in front of Danielle, but she held her hand up against his chest to stop him. "David, babe, I got this. How dare you use such means of trickery to see me? I am a very busy woman." "It was not a trick. I myself am not a judge, but I will be working alongside a judge." "Luca." Danielle rolled her eyes. She knew the man. "I will entertain this. Who are you and why does a woman need to stay here?" David eased up and stepped back behind her. "Name is Pepper Jenkins." Pepper took his spit bottle out of his jacket and spit a wad of dip inside of it. Danielle made a disgusted face. "What kind of name is that, Walmart boy?" "My nickname and that name are more real than those pressed-on nails of yours." "My nails are real, Walmart boy." "Boy? I am far from a boy. And Walmart is a nice store. Where else can you buy bullets, gum, plaid shirts, jeans, and Twinkies at 4 a.m.? Plus, it is better than emo boy behind you. All in black looking like Kylo Ren. Say Hot Topic 3 times and he will appear." Pepper laughed to himself. He needed to stop hanging around Grayson so much. The young man's snarky jokes were rubbing off on Pepper. "My name is David Russo. I am a very powerful man you don't want to mess with." "Hey, aren't you Gerald Russo's brother?" Pepper asked. Pepper had met Gerald, the ex-mafia preacher, a couple of times while on a hunt. The preacher explained his backstory and told Pepper about his brother David. David ran away to the military but went AWOL. He had hoped Pepper might have known if he joined Ares, or if Pepper knew him, but Pepper did not. This was the first time he met him. Yes, Gerald is my brother. David was a bit confused. Ha! Small world. You should call him. Speaking of a small world. Pepper pointed to the framed picture of a magazine on the wall behind Danielle's desk. Danielle turned to look at what he was pointing at. What? That is my father. I know. I had a few jobs with him before. He also paid me not to kill an annoying Irish vampire named Adam. Danielle had enough of this man in her office. He was not only wasting her time, but he was in her place of business demanding things of her. Okay, let's settle this. I will call my father. If he vouches for you, I will help you. If you are lying, I will eat you. Deal? She quickly picked up her phone and called her father. While she stepped away to speak to her father, David and Pepper just glared at each other. Boomer. David mocked. Coward. Dollar General. Darth Vader rejects. The two exchanged heated words, but stopped when Danielle walked back and stood in front of Pepper. She sighed and was not too happy with what she was about to say. What do you need? Her tone was different for Pepper now. More respectful and willing to listen. Not looking for charity, the woman will pay for her stay, but security is all. Pepper explained. Can I know more about this situation? Since I am taking a risk to not only myself but my business? Danny crossed her arms again. Pepper could tell she was fighting not to speak down to him as she did to others in her business deals. I think that is fair. Pepper spit one more time in his bottle before explaining the situation to her. He told her about the woman, her husband, and their connection to Ares. Pepper also explained more about himself as well as his connection with Mavis and the judges. Danny knew of Mavis and his philanthropy. She had a lot of respect for the ex-wizard. If Mavis and her father both vouched for this redneck, then she would do business with him. I will help you as much as I can, but Oris and my other businesses are on the line. Pepper. Danielle sighed deeply. I understand that, and I owe you one. Sometimes favors are more precious than money. Plus, you will earn brownie points with the judges. Pepper added. Fine, bring them in. She walked around and pulled out a piece of paper. She wrote a note and used her ring to seal it. Give this to the woman. Tell her to give it to Check-in when she arrives. They will know what to do. Danielle handed him the piece of parchment. Pepper stood up slowly and winced a bit in pain from his leg. The cold weather was killing his injury. Pepper walked over towards her, doing his best to cover up his limp. He took the paper and thanked her. The demigod then exited her office and made his way back to his car. When he was safely in his car, he gave a quick phone call to Jessica. He explained everything to her and instructed her to meet him at the hotel. When he finished, he hung up with her and proceeded to call Luca. It is taken care of on my side. The woman will be staying at Oris. How did you manage that? Luca asked. Now Luca, as long as you have known me, you know I have my ways. Your ways often incite violence. If the rumors are true, Ms. Holst would have had you eaten. No roasting me, she was a fiery one, but she didn't burn me. Well, she would have frozen you actually. She is an ice dragon, not suppressed. It does explain the whole Ice Queen feeling. Pepper jokes. You have been hanging around Grayson too much, Luca teased. Tell me about it. Next, I will be sporting a pigeon with cross ties. You seem more like a buzzard type of bird. Guy. Luca chuckled. Easy now, or the next time you have me for dinner I will make sure and break all your noodles in half. Luca fussed with Pepper in his first language, Italian. Pepper knew how to get under the young man's skin. Luca was an at-home chef. He always wanted to be a famous one, but being a judge was a high calling he had to answer. Food was his passion behind God, and Pepper often teased him about it. Luca calmed down and conditioned his conversion with Pepper. I have been working with the Black Files, the FBI division here in Chicago, over the past year. They have a case on Ares and are on the hunt for the fallen angel, as well as his current partner. A partner? Since when does Ares work with someone? Pepper asked. He has been stopped at many of Kali's yoga studios. Really? Yes. If only the innocent people knew that yoga was devotion and worship to the Hindu gods. Kali built herself many yoga studios and has been feeding off their worship and energy to grow strong. This caught Ares's eyes, and the two have been meeting lately. So, you're telling me he has been in talks with that blue four-armed devil? Interesting. What is a devil of war and a devil of death plan? Pepper knew it was not anything good. Nothing good, I am sure. Just swing by the FBI headquarters here. I have someone I would like you to meet. Mark Landry. After I have Jessica and her kids settled in, I will make my way over there. Pepper then hung up the phone and tossed it on his dashboard. He then dug in his pocket for his bottle. He removed his dip and tossed it out the window. Pepper then grabbed a bottle of pills that were in his glove box and downed 2 of them. They were the magic pills Grayson made Pepper, helping him with his leg injury. They didn't get rid of the pain 100%, but they made walking bearable. Pepper was not looking forward to going into a government building. He knew nothing of this Black Files division. His distrust of the government was deep. He really knew what they were at the top and who ran things. Pepper was surprised that the judges themselves were affiliated with the government. They had to have known this as well, the type of stuff that went on, so he was surprised as well as curious as to why they were involved. 30 minutes passed by as Pepper was lost in his thoughts. Jessica pulled up beside Pepper's car. The sound of her car door slamming shook him out of his thoughts. He quickly got out and proceeded to show her the way inside the hotel. Chapter 11. Location: Chicago. The Black Files. Over the last few years, the Black Files division saw its rise to the top of the most well-known supernatural police force in the human world. FBI agent Mark Landry was second in command under Commissioner Stephen Montgomery at the Chicago division. Arthur Montgomery was the brother to the commissioner, as well as a judge who would often do bounty hunting jobs. He helped Mark out as much as he could, but the wandering judge was hard to tie down. For this reason, the Couds sent in Luca to help. Luca not only helped at the division, but he also helped Mavis and his family fight off anyone wanting to do them harm. I understand that is your belief and opinion, and everyone is entitled to it, but I believe in the Bible, ma'am. I follow it. We don't push it on others, just inform others of what is in it. It is up to them to follow and believe. We all have free will. Yes. I understand where you are coming from, but you do not understand me? Luca paused and noticed Pepper coming into the room. I and my fellow Christians and judges have a right to their beliefs and convictions. We tell others about the truth, and if they don't believe it, then the blood is off our hands. God doesn't force himself, neither do we. We judges uphold laws of the land as well as spiritual laws. Most do not understand those laws because they don't believe in the Bible where they come from. The devil and his agents are evil, and we stop them. End of the story. Pepper stood there waiting for Luca to finish his phone call. The demigod looked around the office as he waited. Not many people were there. Yes. Yes, we believe in two humans, male and female, in marriage. Yes. Well, I am sorry if it offends you. Do you see me calling you and others saying you offend us by what you believe? No. We respect your decision to not believe even after the truth is offered, and that is the end of it. I don't care what other extra Christians do. That is what we do. We speak the truth in love and uphold justice. I have to go. Luca hung up the phone in annoyance. What was that about? Pepper asked. Complaints. The Italian stuffed his phone in his pocket and gave Pepper his full attention. What is this? You don't tell people how to live? Pepper asked with a smirk. One must seek out their salvation by searching the scriptures and coming to the same truth as us. I miss the days where everyone could have their own option, and no one went crazy on you for it. All civil discussions went out the window after 2012. Luca shrugged. I guess the Mayans were right, the world did end, I suppose. Luca laughed. I always respected ya, Luca. Even though I know a man like me could never be saved. Pepper confesses. That's not true. Humans have a soul and have a choice. Repentance and death to the old man. God can come in and sweep you all up and change you. You just have to ask. Free gift and all. Luca explains. Yeah, not here to discuss religion. It's not religion. Religion is man-made. God made a way of salvation, and we have to follow it and His word. Luca could tell Pepper was getting annoyed and changed the subject. Agent Landry is here. He would like to speak to you. Luca explained. All right. Lead the way. Pepper followed Luca towards the back of the large office building. They reached the end, then Luca knocked twice on the glass door. Mark signals them to enter from inside. As Luca entered, Pepper was right behind him. Pepper's eyes went to Mark and then to the photos on the wall. He noticed a picture of an older version of Angela with Mark. Mark was the same dark shade of color as her. The younger female beside him was a lighter tannish color. Besides the younger female was a white older man, and behind them, all was a tall white younger male. Pepper had a seat beside Luca and pointed to the picture. You know Angela? Pepper asked. She is my mother. Mark pushed his keyboard away and gave Luca and Pepper his full attention. Huh? Never thought Angela would settle down, let alone have a kid. 3. That is my sister and stepbrother. She remarried after my father passed away to a contractor out of New York. You knew my mother? Mark asked. Knew? I know her. Yes, Pepper was confused by the past tense words Mark used. We served together in Am. I'm sorry to tell you this, but my mother passed away about 3 years ago, Mark explains. Pepper frowned a bit. Sorry for your loss. Pepper was saddened a bit. Thank you. It is hard, but my sister Andrea took it the hardest. She mourns by racing and boosting cars downtown. Mark sighs. Who is that big fella? Pepper continued to ask about Mark and his family. Big Mike, he was my stepfather's son before he met my mother. He is also into the criminal lifestyle. He mostly runs in blacklist military jobs. Mark chuckled. It seems I am the only legal and by-the-book one out of my family. May I ask how she died? Pepper was a bit saddened as his thoughts wandered back to the jungles of Nam. The demigod also wondered about the other men that served with him. It was a heart attack. Strange, I know. My mother was very active and fit. I wanted to look into it more, but others told me to leave it be. But I am sure that is not the reason you came here, Mr. Jenkins. Lucas says you are going after Ares and have more information on his comings and goings. Pepper sat back in the chair to face Mark. That is correct. He and Kali are forming an alliance. One devil is enough to deal with. Mark removed his reading glasses and sighed a bit. We would like your help. Especially with Ares. Mark explains. I have been going up against my father and his allies for decades now. Why do I need to join you and your government? We are separate from the large government entities, but you are still a part of them, and I don't like Big Brother. I barely like the judges. No offense. Pepper glanced at Luca. Pepper. I know what Ares has done to you. He is also continuing to do it to others, and we are offering your help and resources to bring him down. We know you don't trust the government, but trust me. Trust the coward. Trust? Yes. It is hard for us to trust you, Pepper. You have his blood along with his blessings and curses. You are a criminal and a bounty hunter to both sides. You have the drive and the know-how on how to take him down. You just lack the right resources. We have those resources. You trust Luca and you trust my mother. Trust me. The three sat in silence as Pepper thought it over. If you only look out the rearview mirror, you will crash. Leave the past behind and focus on the road ahead. We are here to help you take down Ares while we handle his partner Kali. Luca explains. You judges and your metaphors. Pepper shook his head. Judges? You only have met me. How do you know the other judges are like that? Luca laughed. He was always so cheerful and loud. I just assumed. Pepper shrugged. Do you have a location on Ares? Pepper asked. Does that mean you will help us? Even after Ares is gone? Mark raised a brow. I will help you with Ares. As for after that, I am not sure about it. I am kinda set in my ways. Luca rolled his eyes, and we went off in his Italian language. The judge paused and caught his breath. Pepper, we are helping you. You can at least help us afterward to mop up Ares' army and mess. Not really my problem. Pepper shrugged. I see why you lost all your hair. Luca spat. Easy, Judge. You might not be on my good side for long, Pepper warns. You lost it to look like the butt you are. Come on, Pepper. You can help me out with this. We are helping you. How? Pepper lifts his hands up for a moment, trying to understand. By letting you walk around free. Your ways of bounty hunting are not quite legal. Also, the ton of legal warrants you have out for you in Europe when you worked for Cortez, Mark added. Are you two threatening me? Pepper asked with a glare. No, we just want your help and to help you in return. Lucas stood up and paced a bit. Look, I will agree and accept the help to go after Ares. Other than that, I am undecided. Fair enough? Pepper spoke up and over Luca. Mark nodded and stood up. Fair. The FBI agent extended his hand to shake Pepper's. Pepper glanced down at Mark's hand and hesitated for a moment. Nothing is written in stone. If I bolt after I kill Ares, y'all better not chase me down. Pepper glared at Mark. You have my word, Mark assured him. Pepper slowly took his hand and shook it. As Luca and Pepper exited Mark's office, Pepper noticed a strawberry-haired female sitting at a desk in the back corner. Luca made his way towards her, speaking in his Italian native tongue. She replied back to him, and the two began to have a conversation. Pepper did not know Italian. The only other language he spoke was Spanish, Viennese, and a little German. He knew he would probably need to learn Italian to deal with Luca, especially when the judge got mad and went off in his native tongue. Luca turned to face Pepper. "This is my sister Lael." Luca introduced Pepper to his twin sister. "Nice to meet ya. How do you guys get caught in this whole mess?" Pepper asked. Luca then began to explain to Pepper who they were and their background. Luca and Leila Caro were both born and raised in Naples, Italy. Their father was a criminal who turned down his right to be a judge. Seeing how their father and his lifestyle were, the twins vowed to never turn out like him. They spent their lives training secretly with an older judge to learn the ways of God and what it took to become a judge. When they turned 18, the two left their father's home, seeking out their mission to stop the crime mob lifestyles of their father and any others. Be it human or supernatural, the mob families knew the twins were a threat. The twins became professional at dealing with that type of crime, and this benefited not only the judges but human governments as well. After taking the family that their father worked for down, the two continued to chase after mob families throughout Italy. Luca was then called to help Mavis and his family combat Mavis's enemies, being he left one of the main 13 families under Lucifer who ran the world. Mavis was important to the judges, and they knew Luca and Lael were the right judges for the task. Luca wanted to be a chef growing up, but he knew his calling was far greater. The judge is a romantic at heart. Gentle, but in battle he is fierce. Most of the time he is reserved and calm, but when aggravated, he will tend to argue in his native tongue. Luca is considered bulletproof. The power given to him by God was armor. Armor, dermal, the character has skin that has the properties of armor. Armor, dermal, is also known as armored skin, dermal armor, natural armor, skin armor, thick skin, and tough skin. Layla wanted to be a computer programmer, but decided to aid the Count and her brother growing up. Layla is sassy, tough-skinned, and very blunt. At times she can be hot-headed and very competitive. She is a judge but works more behind the scenes. She is a math and accounting specialist, and puts the info together to take down the criminal and white-collar crimes. Luca is more the face and interacts with them to get the info. Her abilities are cyberpathy. Cyberpathy is the psionic ability to intercept, generate, and interpret electronic, digital, and radio transmissions. The user can perceive, understand, control, and generate electronic, digital, and radio transmissions without accessing any standard source of communication. The user is in essence a living wireless hub computer. Layla has out-hacked the best, but always used her gift to help others. The judges always thought to watch what you say and to think before speaking. This was due to the lineage of the judge they came from. Chapters 11-12 of the Book of Judges tell the narrative of Jephthah. The Israelites were a people that lived in the land of Israel, and they committed what was wicked in the eyes of the Lord once more. They abandoned the Lord and refused to serve him. As a result, the Lord's wrath was inflamed against Israel, and he sold them into the hands of the Philistines and Ammonites. Jephthah, who was born illegitimately, was chased out of Gilead by his half-brothers and settled in Tob, east of Gilead. The elders of Gilead begged him to lead them in the battle against the Ammonites, but he refused because he wanted a more permanent and broader position. The elders agreed that if Jephthah defeats Ammon, he would be their permanent chieftain. In the name of Israel as a whole, and with the support of the international community, Jephthah challenged the Ammonites. Jephthah swears an oath to God, and whatever footnote. or whoever comes out from the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the Ammonites shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it. Or him up for a burnt offering. On his return, the victorious Jephthah was greeted by his sole child, a girl. Jephthah weeps and tears his garments, "My daughter, alas! You have brought me to my knees," he exclaims, but he is bound by his word. "I have spoken to the Lord, and I cannot retract my vow." The girl requested 2 months' grace. As a result, Jephthah "So I may travel up and down on the mountains and mourn for my virginity." Her father granted her this request. Even today, acting in accordance with his commitment that he had made, the daughters of Israel went year by year to lament the daughter of Jephthah, the Gileadite, 4 days in the year. "So, you guys go after the mafia?" Pepper asked. In fact, the analogy between the Mafia or Costa Nostra families and the Maria or Illuminati families is apt, since they are linked organizationally and were founded by the same occult stream of secret societies that Satan has been controlling. The 13 families that rule the world with Lucifer and are Rothschild, Astor, Bundy, Collins, DuPont, Freeman, Kennedy, Lee, Onassis, Rockefeller, Russell, Van Dyne, Merovingian. Lucifer selected these families as a mockery of God's appointed the tribes, Israel. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. Ephraim and Manasseh. Mavis was part of the Collins family. Collins is a long-established New England family. Francis, Edward, and John were among the first members. It's possible that a portion of the satanic branch resides in England as well. The Collins, like most prominent Illuminati families, has expanded around the globe, with members of their diabolical bloodline even on the West Coast. The members of the family have ties to both aristocracy and witchcraft. That is why witchcraft is so rooted in him. Layla explains. "New York, I know a Chaser hunter out there. Maybe you can meet up and he can help you. His name is Benjamin Davis. Most know him as Ben. I will keep that in mind. My first goal is to get that low-life husband of Jessica's." Demon versus demon. Pepper chuckled. "Pepper, you are not a demon. I know deep down you are a good guy, and you are just going through stuff. You should pray for guidance." Pepper was hesitant to reply. Men like him could never get forgiveness. That isn't true. Lucas shares the gospel and tells him, "No one is good enough nor can do good things to get into heaven. We were saved by grace through faith in Jesus and what he did for us." Lael added, "What is the name of the man you are after?" she asked. "Why?" Pepper lifted a brow. "Because I can locate anyone." Layla held her fingers over the keys waiting for Pepper to give her an aim. "Greg. Greg Albert." Pepper told her the name of Jessica's husband and continued to talk with Luca as Lael searched on her computer. "Kale is our major concern right now. I am helping Mark take her down. Hopefully, Mavis and his family can stay out of trouble until then." "Have you not met Grayson?" Pepper chuckled. "I know you have spent a good amount of time there and all. It is how we meet. But Pepper, there is a lot about that family that you don't know about." "I know, but Mavis was straight with me. I know enough to help them. Helping Mr. M helped me out. The Amazons are taken care of, and that was a major blow to Ares. That is probably the reason he is setting up shop with this new devil. I have been going after his army since Vietnam, and I am finally seeing my efforts pay off. He is scrambling to find powerful partners to replace the Amazons, and I'm guessing this collie will fill the gap. You guys need to stop her before she does so." I will handle Ares, but you must do your part if you want him and his stronghold gone from the city. What scares me is I have done all this for nothing. Pepper adjusts his cowboy hat as he glances over at Lael's many computer screens. Luca, what scares you? Pepper broke the long pause of silence. What scares me is that people aren't afraid of going to hell, but the demons are. Luca sighed deeply. Before he could continue, his sister turned on her screen to face Pepper. This is his location. He is staying at some fancy bar called Wish. Pepper wrote down the address and stuffed the piece of paper in his pocket. Amy is the head judge at the Black Files Division in New York. Reach out to her if you have issues or need help. Lael explained. Chapter 12. The country demigod made his way towards an upscale bar place called Wish somewhere outside New York. Pepper hated cities. They were nothing but busybodies and stuck-up jerks. He missed the days when he lived a simple life in the jungle with his wife and kids, but now his days were filled with chaos and violence. Pepper just glanced up at the entrance to an upscale restaurant, cursing to himself. Sighing deeply, Pepper adjusted his jacket and walked in. The hostess tried to stop him, but the glare he gave her made her stop in her tracks. He took out a 20 and stuffed it in her hand. Easy, darlin', I will be only 5 minutes. He grins as he reaches behind her to grab a toothpick. Pepper gave her a wink before walking towards the inner restaurant part of the bar. The looks he got didn't faze him at all. He didn't care what these folks thought about him. He was there to solve a problem, and that problem name was Greg Albert. Greg was the first agenda to deal with before going after and finally confronting Ares. Pepper knew he would need help to go up against the Fallen One. Layla suggested Amy, a judge, while Luca spoke of a hunter or chaser called Ben. Pepper would most likely talk with the chaser. They were more down to earth. Most judges were by the book, while hunters did what they had to do to solve a problem. They worked more on the lines of how Pepper worked. Pepper finally noticed Greg in the back corner sitting alone. The demigod began to quickly head that way. Pepper reached the table and pulled out a chair. He then slowly took a seat while glaring at the surprised Greg. Evening Pepper broke the silence as he put his boots on the white linen tablecloth. He began to chew on the toothpick as he eyed down the man before him. The redneck in a cowboy hat, jeans, and dusty jacket stuck out like a sore thumb compared to everyone else. 5 minutes later, Pepper went flying through the large glass window and skidded along the concrete sideway. Glass rained down on him as he slid to a stop just before the streets section. Lucky for the demi, his clothes were thick, and it aided in him not getting nasty cuts from the glass. Pepper tried to control the rage and anger as he sat up. Dusting and shaking the glass off his snakeskin jacket and cowboy hat, he stood up glaring into the building he was just thrown out of. He spits the wad of tobacco from his mouth on the ground and made his way back inside. Things were about to get serious. Greg. He spoke in a tempered tone. This could have been clean and not messy. But your boy threw me out a window, now you die. He walked back in to be greeted again with the 7-foot giant who threw him out the first time. Without missing a beat, he drew back and cold-cocked the man in the face. The giant went cross-eyed and fell back with a thud. The bigger they wait, that is too cliché. How about you throw me around, I knock you the heck out. He rambled to himself as he stepped over the man. Limping a bit more than usual now that his leg was hit, Pepper bit back the pain. He didn't take his medicine since he didn't figure this grab-and-go job was going to be hard. Greg Albert hired a guard, But no guard was gonna save him from the Demi's wrath now. All Pepper was going to do was turn the man into the judges, but now it was personal. Now Albert would die. It would save not only Pepper time, but give relief to Jessica, no doubt. Greg ran out the back and tried his best to run through the back alleys and away from Pepper. Pepper was a bit slower now because of his leg acting up, but he kept sights on the mark. "You got yourself in a pickle, Greg. Should have just come quietly," he yelled as he reached in his jacket and removed his pistol. When Pepper finally reached an empty clearing, he extended his gun and aimed at the man running. Calming his breath and making sure no one was around, Pepper tapped the trigger, and 2 bullets went flying towards the running man. One hit the man in the back, the other in the leg. Greg fell with a thud. Pepper held out his gun and kept it pointed at Greg as he pressed his foot on his neck. "Tell me where Ares is, and I will make this quick." Pepper pointed the gun in Greg's face. Between sobs, Greg pleaded with his life. Meanwhile, across the street, a dark-haired male sat behind the wheel of a black van. He was trying to eat a sandwich in peace, but no peace would come. Beside him was a small imp strapped, duct-taped, and seat-belted in the passenger seat. It was cursing and trying to get loose from its restraints. In the back seat sat a male around the same age as the driver, but he had blonde hair that was a bit messy. His clothes were tattered, and the man looked homeless. "I don't see why I can't sit in the front, Ben." "Well, Justin, I can't watch this thing if it is in the back. He already tried once to mess up my van," Ben replied to in between bits. Justin was also scarfing down some food as he continued to speak. "This van is old and junky anyways," says the homeless man. Ben joked, "Hey, that isn't nice. Plus, I am not homeless anymore thanks to you." "Yeah, you just occupy my couch." Ben turned and gave Justin a grin. "But seriously, buddy, I need to get you some new clothes," Ben said as he turned around to watch out the window. "I hate to keep asking you for stuff. It is enough you took me in and now helping me learn this Chazzer supernatural hunting skills. It only fits. You have powers of your own, Justin. Might as well put them to use." Ben chuckled and tossed the empty sandwich wrapper at the imp sitting beside him. The paper hit the thing in the face, causing it to scream. "What are we going to do with this thing?" Justin asked. "I am not sure yet. If it knows anything useful, I might turn it in. If not, we are probably going to put it out of its misery." The imp stopped screaming and wiggling. It turned to look up at Ben with big sad eyes. "Aw, it looks like Puss in Boots." Justin chuckled. "And like Puss in Boots, if you untied it, it would claw you up. Do not let their big baby eyes fool you," Ben explained. "He may be small, but these guys are still dangerous." Ben was about to continue to explain a bit more about the creature, but was stopped by the sound of a scream. He turned to face the building across the street. Ben and Justin watched as some punk messed with a woman exiting the place called Wish. The punk kid tried to take her purse, but the woman started to go crazy on him. "Justin, go help her." Ben looked over at his friend. "Why me?" Justin grumbled a bit. "I have to watch the gremlin, plus you are the one in training." Ben pointed to the door. Justin quickly got out of the van and sprinted across the street. The way the woman tossed the punk around, it was not human. Justin reached in his tattered jacket and pulled out a vial of oil. "Hey lady, calm down. I think he got the point." Justin tried to calm her down, but it just made it worse. Justin tosses holy oil on her, screaming, "The power of Christ compels you." "You idiot, I'm not a demon. I'm a Valkyrie." Justin stopped for a moment and froze like a deer in headlights. The Valkyrie curses and screams at Justin. Justin tossed the vial and hightailed it back to the van. The Valkyrie then proceeded to chase Justin. Ben started the car and tried to get to Justin before the Valkyrie. The whole time, the imp was screaming on the passenger side. Justin quickly hopped in the van and Ben peeled out. The Valkyrie hopped on top of the van and started punching it. "See why I have a crappy van?" Ben hissed at Justin. "What did you do?" Ben asked. "I thought she was a demon, so I threw oil on her." Justin tried to explain loud enough for Ben to hear over the pounding from the roof. "The bloodlust rage will wear off soon." Hopefully Ben turned down the small street beside the building. As he did, the Valkyrie rocked the van back and forth, causing it to sway. Justin was freaking out in the back while Ben remained calm and tried to drive. The imp in the passenger seat was now laughing at the situation. Ben turned down another alley and almost ran into a man standing over another man with a gun pointed at him. Ben turned the van sharply and it smashed into a brick wall. The Valkyrie flipped off the van and landed on her feet behind the smoking van. The man standing over the other man turned and opened fire on the Valkyrie, causing her to flee. Bullets ricochet off the brick walls, hitting the van and street. Ben yelled at the man as he crawled out from the broken window. "Hey, who do you think you are?" Ben got to his feet and held up a crowbar. "Pepper, the man who just helped you. Who do you think you are? Almost running me over with that ugly van." Pepper pointed his gun at Ben, and the two men had a stare down. Justin finally crawled out and looked up to see the situation. "He is Ben, I'm Justin. We are chasers, then that Valkyrie was trying to kill us." Justin tried to explain everything to Pepper. "Ben, Benjamin Davis?" Pepper asked, lowering his gun. "Yeah," Ben replied. "Luca Caro said I should meet up with you. Funny how you found me first." Pepper chuckled a bit. Suddenly the imp broke loose from its restraints and came clawing out the van. The sound of metal and screeching filled the air as it tried to run after Pepper. Pepper lifted his gun and shot the creature dead. Justin had his ears covered from the gunfire. "You are a veteran, Justin." Ben looked over at Justin holding his ears. "I still don't like the sound of gunfire. It messes with my condition." Justin pouted. "You served in the military?" Pepper asked. "Yes, Army, and Ben was a Navy SEAL," Justin replied. Ben dropped his crowbar and helped Justin off the ground. He noticed a purse beside his van and picked it up. "I served in Vietnam. Had no choice." Pepper lowered his gun and watched the men. "Draft?" Justin asked. "Nah, my father Aries, or he was anyways. Had us in a classified group called SOAP." "Was?" Ben asked as he dug through the purse. He pulled out a wallet and the ID. "SOAP?" Justin perked up. "Yeah, I'm out here hunting after him. Ben, my personal mission is to bring him down. Helping the judges out in the process. Not my normal thing, but an enemy to my enemy." Pepper explains. "My father was in that group. Barry Thomas." Justin spoke up. Ben and Pepper both looked at him. "It is how I got my powers. He was a super soldier experiment and it passed from him to me." Justin explained. "Is that your condition?" Pepper asked. "No, I have PTSD. You know." Justin lowered his head in shame. "I understand. We all have a form of it, just some it affects differently. Don't worry, soldier. I understand. You look young for an AMVET." Ben at it. "Aries' curse, I guess." Pepper glanced down to see Greg still watching them in silence. Let's get out of here. I need to look into this Valkyrie. Ben waved it in the air before stuffing it in his pocket. Why? Justin asked. Because she owes me a van, Ben grumbled. If Lucas sent you, then you can crash at my apartment. I only have one bedroom and Justin already has the couch. Ben explained. The floor is fine. Pepper nodded as he turned to put a bullet in Greg's head before following the two men out the alley. As the men sat in the back seat of a cab, Justin looked out the window as Ben read the information he gathered from his phone. Being a friend to the judges, the Chaser had access to the base. The Valkyrie's name is Brynhild Robber. In Norse mythology, Valkyries have special skills related to their role as fate deciders for deceased warriors. They have the ability to discern when a warrior is about to die, to arrange for that warrior to die, to postpone death, so the warrior can continue to improve in skill, and to take the selected warrior's soul with them. They can move around invisibly, and some of them may take on the appearance of birds or animals or fly with wings. They are adept combatants with many lives of experience as shield maidens. In reality, a Valkyrie is a mortal woman who has been endowed with incredible abilities by Odin. These women are in charge of keeping an eye on battlegrounds and gathering the best of the best fighters to form Odin's army, which will be unleashed during Ragnarok. The nobility of the Valkyries is mirrored in their look. They have statuesque bodies and lily-white skin. Their hair might be as bright as the sun or as dark as the night. These women wear gorgeous garments made of swan or raven feathers during times of peace, but as battle approaches, they don their armor. Finely carved helmets and shields, as well as chainmail corsets. They may continue to wear a feather cape, or they may develop their own wings to let them soar over the battlefields, according to legend. Odin is given dominance over feminine beings involved with the battlefield, the Valkyries, and governs Valhalla, where he receives half of those who die in battle, the Einarjar, according to Old Norse scriptures. Goddess Freyja chooses the other half for her eternal home of Folkvangr. Odin seeks advice from the wise being Mimir's disembodied herb-embalmed skull, and at this time, sounds like the Amazon Ares uses Pepper at it. Brynhildr was not only gorgeous and intelligent, but she was also the daughter of a legendary Norse king. When Brynhildr reached the age of majority, Odin decided to make her one of his Valkyries. Brynhildr was a fantastic Valkyrie until Odin asked her to judge the outcome of king versus king combat. Odin liked the older monarch, but the young lady chose to let the younger king win, reasoning that the older king would die soon anyhow. Odin, however, did not accept Brynhildr's logic. He was so offended by her decision that he resolved to jail her on a mountainside and force her to sleep in a circle of fire until a man could find and marry her. The Brynhildr had been sleeping in her fiery temple for hundreds of years. Sigurður, the hero, had finally arrived. He was enthralled by the gorgeous woman, who had firelight dancing across her delicate skin, but she was still sleeping when he approached her. He gently stroked her hair, then her face, and she fell asleep. When the hero examined her mail corset more closely, she noticed that it was so tight that it appeared to have merged with her skin. He untied the knots, and Brynhildr gasped a long breath, jolting her awake. It was love at first sight for both of them. Brynhildr accepted Sigurðr's proposal of a magical ring, which he presented to her. The hero then left his young fiancée, promising to return and marry her as soon as possible. However, machinations to end the engagement were already in the works. A witch with a daughter and son dwelt beneath Brynhildr's mountain. Because she wanted the brave Sigurður to marry her daughter, Gundr, She promised to let him rest in her home after he returned from the mountain. She gave him a medicine there that made him forget about Brynhildr and fall in love with Gundr instead. They were soon married and had a happy life together. Ben continued to read out loud the info the Cowd had on her. It also says she was in both World Wars and flipped to our side during World War II. After that, no one has heard from her. Ben stuffed his phone in his pocket. That is so sad. I feel sorry for her. Justin spoke up. You said you were after Ares? Any idea where he would be? Ben asked. No, I was going to try and get it out of Greg, but he would never have told me. I guess I will have to swing by the Black File New York division to speak with Amy. Pepper sighed a bit. If you don't mind, I would like to finish this lead with this Valkyrie. Then I will be able to help you. I don't want her hurting anyone else. That sounds like a plan to me. Pepper nodded. He was just grateful for the help and a place to stay among fellow soldiers. Chapter 13. Pepper was up before dawn. He only slept a few hours each night. Most of the time the nightmares kept him up. Ben was still in his room and Justin was fast asleep on the couch. The demigod made himself a cup of coffee and walked back to sit in the recliner. He noticed Justin was tossing and turning while making moaning noises. He was most likely having a nightmare about his past, much like the ones Pepper would have. The military teaches you how to kill and fight, but not how to live afterward. Justin's dreams brought him back to his life before he knew Ben. It was a memory that stuck in his mind. The first time he had had a breakdown due to his PTSD. Justin sat at his neighbor's house drinking a beer in the backyard. The neighbor had invited him and his wife over for dinner, and with Justin not wanting to be rude, accepted. The women were in the kitchen talking as the men were outside. The neighbor, Dwight, struck a match and lit up the fire. An eerie feeling came over Justin as his eyes gazed into the fire. So, y'all planning for kids? Dwight tried to make small talk, but Justin was fixated on the flames and the smoke that rose from it. A similar scene as he remembered what happened in Somalia. Flames like these but on a greater scale. In Somalia, while escorting United Nations aid workers to a camp to help the people there, the convoy was ambushed. The front received heavy fire, but in the back of the convoy, where Justin wasn't hit as badly. Cars were aflame as men cried out as they were burning to death. The smell of gas, metal, and flesh was something he would never forget. The screams of the dying men, the horrible screams, were something he would never forget. For 2 days Justin and a few others were in and out of abandoned buildings, hiding and trying to survive the heavy fire from the rebels. The battle was too heavy for the Black Hawks to land, so the few soldiers had to lay low. One night when one of his buddies was sleeping, he awoke to an Alaska pointing at him. Justin jumped into action and broke the person's neck who was aiming at his buddy. To his horror, it was just a young kid, no older than 15. Dwight slammed the BBQ pit, and it made Justin jump up from the table where he was sitting. He was wide-eyed and ready to attack. Dwight backed up, fearful of the look that was in Justin's eyes. He looked like a cornered beast. Justin was snapped out of his moment by his wife. "Are you okay?" she asked as she stood outside the door holding a salad bowl. Justin dropped the beer and walked back to his house. The sounds and smells were all too much for him. The demons of memories haunted him. He ran into the bathroom at his house and locked the door. He did his best to breathe and calm down, but the banging from his wife on the other side of the door didn't help. "Justin? Justin." Her high-pitched voice sent his teeth on edge. Just leave me alone. He screamed and he pulled in his hair a bit and tried to cover his ears. He had broken out in a sweat as he slid down the bathroom door. His back to it as he held his head rocking and trying to drown out the sounds of the past and the sounds of his wife. Gunfire and the sound of pounded made Justin toss and turn so bad he fell on the floor. The thud woke him up screaming. Pepper sat his cup down and did his best to calm Justin down. Ben came from his room with a gun in his hand. When he noticed it was Justin having a nightmare, Ben lowered the gun. He watched Pepper comfort Justin. "It is all right, buddy. We are here." Pepper hugged Justin. He normally wasn't one for compassion or sincerity, but Justin was a fellow soldier. Pepper understood the pain he was going through. "I'll make you breakfast, Justin." Ben walked past the two men and went into his kitchen. Food was a comfort for Justin, and because of it, he was a bit chunky. Pepper helped Justin off the floor and back on the couch. "Want to talk about it? It might help?" Pepper suggested. Justin nodded and began to explain to Pepper his past. He explained that his dad Barry came back from the war and had him with his mother. Barry was a verbally abusive butthole and passed his super soldier powers to Justin. Justin joined the army to appease his father. Justin was one of the men who survived the Somalia mission. On October 3, 1993, about 100 elite U.S. soldiers were dropped by helicopter into the teeming market in the heart of Mogadishu, Somalia. Their mission was to abduct two top lieutenants of a Somali warlord and return them to base. The severe PTSD caused Justin to be discharged from the army. The PTSD got worse due to no treatment, and his wife left him. Soon after, he lost his job due to PTSD. He couldn't afford help nor a way to get benefits, so he ended up homeless. Ben found him one day during a hunt and took him in. "If it was not for Ben, I would be frozen on a sidewalk somewhere, or I would have killed myself." Justin sighed. Ben walked in and handed him a bottle of water. "I am no psychologist, but I am doing my best to help." Keeping him busy with hunting and chasing after the supernatural usually helps. "It has been months since his last episode," Ben explained. "We have a group of local chasers who are vets as well. We often get together and have our own support group." Justin explains. "Maybe after this ordeal with Ares, I could check it out." Pepper gave Justin a warm smile. "Come on, big guy, your eggs are getting cold." Ben smiled and walked back to the small kitchen. The three men sat in silence and ate their breakfast. Ben finished his plate and brought it to the sink to wash up. Justin spoke up between bites of egg and bacon. "So, if I may ask, why are you going after Ares?" Justin asked. "Ares and a man named Kurt tried to open a portal for something called the darkness to come through. I and my men stopped him. I tried to hide in the jungle afterward. I started a life and a family, only I should have known better. Your past will always follow you. Ares found me and told me to rejoin him. I refused and he killed my wife and kids. Later he tried to recruit me again and broke my leg. I vowed to destroy his army as well as him, although going up against a fallen angel alone proves difficult. I am not one to be all righteous like the judges, so this mission is taking me longer than expected." "Are fallen angels hard to kill?" Justin asked. "You could say that. They don't really die like me and you. They are more like displaced and sent to the pit. They are eternal beings. Remember I told you the demons and fallen angels are different. The demons need bodies and angels don't." "Yeah, casting the demons out doesn't kill them, it just sends them away," Justin replied. Exactly. I need to figure out a way out to trap Ares or send him to Tartarus. Pepper placed his fork on his plate and whipped his mouth. So confusing. Justin sighed deeply. I am sure Luca, or the judges can explain it more. Ben smiled as he whipped his hands on a towel. We are going to swing by there today. Maybe you can ask them all your questions. Surprised they are working with you. The Chazers and judges normally do not get along, less alone a demigod bounty hunter. Ben slung the towel on his shoulder and crossed his arms as he watched Pepper. I see you did your research on me as well. Pepper chuckled. A good soldier always does. Plus, I gave Luca a call as well. He confirmed everything you spoke of. Ben added. Luca would have come out here with you, but the issue he is having with Kali was extreme. At least that is what he informed me about. They asked me to go after my father, which I was already doing, to begin with. They offered me their help and I could not turn it down. Pepper leaned back in the chair, relaxed, and crossed his arms. While you two go to the Black Files office building, I need to return this and have a word with its owner. Ben held up the ID of the Valkyrie. Are you sure you want to go alone? She is scary. Justin spoke up. I will be fine. A trip to visit the judges will help you, Justin. They can answer any questions you have. Plus, I trust Pepper to look after you, big fella. Ben ruffled Justin's hair as he walked past them. Ben then made his way towards his room and changed. Well, I guess it is just me and you today, buddy. Pepper glanced at Justin. The chunky soldier was in his early 30s, but he was super young compared to Pepper. The last question. Will there be snacks on this mission? Justin inquired. Pepper rolled his eyes a bit. You just ate. How can you think about food? Justin shrugged and stood up with Pepper. Some guys have a drug addiction, others alcohol, mine is food. He explained as he followed Pepper out the door. Chapter 14, 1950. You know I love you, right? The man whispered into Bry's ears. The sound made Bry's heart flutter a bit as he embraced her tightly. Bry chuckled and leaned into his kiss. It had been centuries since she was able to open her heart up to be loved again. Her last encounter with love failed miserably as her beloved became distracted while climbing down a mountain. The one she was to marry found another and left Bry alone and hurting, but the Valkyrie was strong. Bry found work and put all her effort into it to distract her from her past. She was banished and an unwanted Valkyrie, so she had to cut her own path in this world. Battle was in her blood and oftentimes she would get caught up in the wars of this world. It was a distraction from her condition, a woman cursed by Odin, the fallen angel, to live with these powers. The Second World War had just ended, and Bry thought she could finally rest and have a normal life. The man she was with was unaware of what she was less alone about in her past. She thought it best this way. It would only open up questions she couldn't fully answer. You are going to love my parents. My mom is a little clingy, but nice. He explained as the two walked down the sidewalk. And your dad? She inquired. Oh, he is always too busy with his sports to even notice. He chuckled. As the couple made their way across the street and down the alleyway, a puff of black smoke appeared. Bry was not afraid, but she pretended for her fiancé's sake. Get behind me, Bry. He tried to act boldly, but the crackle in his voice gave his fear away. A tall blonde-haired man appeared with a smile. He wore Nazi apparel, and it made Bry's stomach turn. During the first half of the war, she fought with the German, being she was from that country, but later switched sides and added the judges. She could not stand or allow the slaughter of innocent people, nor could she stomach the horrors the Nazis did to them. "Brandon, did you forget about our deal?" The man spoke up. "No, it isn't time yet." Brandon shook his head. "What is going on?" Bry asked. "Oh? He didn't tell you. He sold his soul to me. Hello, I'm Kurt, by the way." The male added. "Bry, I'm so sorry." Brandon turned to look at her with big puppy eyes. "Sorry for what? What is going on?" Bry glanced towards Kurt and her lover. "His time is up. He now belongs to me to serve me for eternity." Kurt grins. "Please, my mom is sick and my dad." Brandon's pleas fell on deaf's ears. "We had a deal and I uphold my end, now yours, Brandon, my boy." Brandon got on his knees and sobbed, begging Kurt. This broke Bry's heart, and she stepped in front of him. "I'll do it. I will take his place." She didn't know what came over her, only that the man she loved was at risk and she wanted to help. A Valkyrie would be a nice addition, very well. "Sign here." Kurt pulled out a parchment from his long black coat. "One condition: nothing happens to him or his family or the deal is off." "Yes, fine, fine." Kurt unrolled the paper contract. Bry glanced down at Brandon one last time before signing her name. "Excellent. This way, my dear. Do tell me your story. Valkyries are very rare." He held out his arm for her to take. Bry swallows the lump in her throat and takes his arm. She glanced back towards where Brandon was, only to see him running off like a coward. Her heart shattered again. A few tears fell and Kurt wiped them away. There, my dear, it will be okay. I am a far boss. You will see." Kurt grins as the two walk down the street. "Present a look. I work for you and serve you, Kurt, but please don't follow me to my one place where I can be at peace. Don't come into my apartment as you own it." Kurt rose from the couch and smiled at her boldness. "But I do own you, so I own this. I only allow you to have such freedom because you are one of my favorites. You do good work and bring in plenty of souls for me. I have a proposal. I can reduce your sentence if you do this one favor for me." Kurt trailed off as he circled Bry. The Valkyrie loathed the Nazi. She wanted so badly to stick a blade through his black heart, but she was powerless to do so. The contract and the fact he owned her soul, Bry was incapable of doing what she was born to do: fight. "What favor is that?" "Huh? What is it, Kurt? What else can you ask from me?" Her tone was sharp as she glared up at him. "I need you to take care of a few people for me. You see, I have been keeping you in the bar instead of using your potential. You are a warrior and I intend on using that to my advantage." Kurt leans down and whispers in her ear, "I'll keep in touch." The feeling of his warm breath and his voice made Bry cringe. She clenched her fist, doing her best not to cold cock him in the jaw. "I will see myself out." "Yeah, you do that." She spoke through clenched teeth. After the Nazi necromancer left, Bry went to shower and get ready for her job at his bar and restaurant. Bry entered the back door of the high-class bar and restaurant called Wish. She hated this place. The rich people and the supernatural that came in were all two-faced and selfish cowards. She had no choice but to work there. Her good looks and slight accent helped with sealing the deal on souls for Kurt. She wasn't quite sure what he did with them. What she gathered was he still did the Nazi experiments on them to make them super soldiers or undead zombies that followed him. An army of the undead. The blonde made her way to the bar and began prepping for the day. Regulars as well as newcomers came and went that day, but one male who entered the bar caught her attention. The way he walked into the bar area caused Bri to stop cleaning the glass that she had in her hands. He was a warrior for sure. The Valkyrie could tell he was not like the normal beings who came through the doors of the bar. He was rugged and rough. It was as if he had just walked off the battlefield. A man that could fit right in during the old days of swinging an axe and sword. A real warrior. Being a Valkyrie, she could tell these things. He was certainly worthy of dwelling in Valhalla. She could smell the blood that stained his hands before he even sat down. Why was he here? Was he so down on his luck he wished to gain a wish? He didn't look like the type, no. He looked like the kind that took what he needed in blood and violence. The man sat at the bar in front of her and glanced up for a moment. She could tell he had just been in a fight. The battle lingered in the air like perfume to her. Also, a slight bruising was forming under his dark eyes. Whiskey. His raspy voice spoke. Bri nodded and poured him a glass. Normally she was a bit of a grumpy Gus to customers, but this male seemed interesting. Rough night? She asked as she placed the glass in front of him. The male nodded as he took a sip. She glanced at him sideways, studying him more. You don't seem like the type that comes in here. Do you know what this place is? She asked as she placed her hands on the slick wood and leaned against the bar. The male looked up from his glass and at her. The pain, anger, sadness, and determination were written in those eyes. No, he took another sip. His eyes then glanced towards the man that came from the back entrance. Bri glanced in the same direction before focusing on the man in front of her. Something was going on she wasn't sure about. The man who just entered saw the man at the bar and yelled, "Ben!" In an angry mood, the man rushed towards Ben and got one good hit in, making Ben's nose bleed before Ben grabbed him. Bri stood motionless watching the whole thing. This was getting interesting. Why are you following me, Ben? Because to any boy you are pimping young girls. Ben wasn't really following him per se at that moment. He was there for Bri, but two birds. One stone. Kurt gave them to me. Who is Kurt? Ben yelled. He is my boss. And runs this bar, Bri replied. Ben looked up at her, but before he could speak, the man tried to pull out a knife to stab Ben. Bri saw it and broke the whiskey bottle next to her and jabbed it into Danny's neck. The man fell to the floor bleeding. Clean up. Bri yelled as Ben looked up at her puzzled. You weren't going to get anything out of him, but me, however. I can help you only if you help me first. I know you are the same hunter who spared my life. Now I repay that. Bri handed him the towel that was on her shoulder, so Ben could wipe the blood off his face. Ben took the towel and began to wipe the blood off his face. All the while his eyes watched Bri walk around the bar and over the dead man. Come on. We can't talk here. She motioned with her head for him to follow her. Ben stood up from the stool and followed the blonde out of the bar and into the back alleyway. All the while he kept his guard up. Relax. If I wanted to kill you, you would be dead. She closed the door behind him. Ben took out her ID and handed it to her. You owe me a van. He grumbled. Sorry, where is the other guy? The chubby scaredy cat? Busy. Who is Kurt? Ben was straight and to the point. He wasn't one for small talk. She began to explain that this was Kurt's bar, a Nazi necromancer who traded souls for wishes. He tells others he is a wish granter when really, he just ends up having them for their blood and bodies. The Nazi is still experimenting on people even after the war, one suppose. And why does a Valkyrie work for a necromancer? He asked. I have no choice. The Valkyrie looked down and sighed deeply. She then began to explain to this stranger known as Ben her story. After the war, I tried to settle down, but Brandon, who came to love and was in debt with Kurt. He told Kurt I was a Valkyrie. The necromancer would release Brandon in exchange for me. Kurt was a sucker for Old Norse religion, and having me as a pet would be a treat. Brandon was a merman and played me the whole time. Where is Kurt now? Ben asked. The hunter remembered the name coming from Pepper. Right now, in Japan with Aiko. His new pet is a kitsune. Poor girl. He has had her since Vietnam. Look, if he finds out I am helping you, don't worry about him. I will help you out of this mess in exchange for everything you know about him. Ben took out a phone and began to text a few people. Meanwhile, across town, Pepper and Justin made their way inside the Black Files building. It was twice as big as the Chicago branch. Amy was located on the 4th floor. The only reason he was visiting the judge was to find out where Ares was. Pepper needed to figure out a strategy, and the first problem to overcome was the location of Ares or his base camp in New York. Luca informed him that of all people, Amy would know. The two men exited the elevator and walked towards Amy's office. Pepper read the name tag on the door out loud. Judge Amy Gillies the demigod knocked a couple of times and waited. "Come in." A female voice called out. Pepper opened the door and the two walked in. The female judge looked stressed as she held her head in her hands. Papers were all over her desk, and her long brown hair was a mess. Pepper heard another female voice coming from a speakerphone on the desk. "Samara, I don't know what to tell you. I am trying to keep up with my cases as well as keep tabs on Baal and Ashtoreth. I know, but I need you to keep an eye on my friend Nat. She can tend to get into trouble," Samara replied. We are here for information on Ares." Justin spoke up shyly. Amy looked up at Pepper and Justin. "Sam, I have to let you go." "No. I can help." "What do you need?" Sama hacked into Amy's computer and TV behind her. The image of the nerdy-looking blonde appeared. Pepper tilted his head a bit. The woman seemed familiar. He dug into his pocket as the two women continued to speak. "Luca asked me to look into and find Ares for Pepper to go after," Amy explained to Samara. The blonde's figures began to type furiously as she searched for him. Pepper took out his phone and searched for the picture that he had retired for Grayson. Meanwhile, Justin walked to the window and looked down at the street below. "Oh look, I can see Kim's Chinese from here," Justin pointed out. "Pepper, if I tell you where Ares is, can you please go check on my friend?" Samara asked. "Look, I came here just for a location. I didn't come here for side missions," Pepper said grumpily. Amy put her hands in a praying potion and peas with Pepper silently. "Oh, come on, Pepper. I don't know you, but please." Pepper held up his phone to compare the picture to the woman on the screen. He sighed deeply. It was Grayson's sister. "Okay. Fine. But you have to do something for me." He owed Grayson a favor, so he would use his sister's request as payment. "Anything, guys." Samara smiled on the screen. "Call Grayson Collins. He is Mavis Collins' son. I am sure you can find his number, if not ask Luca." Pepper explained. "What for?" Samara asked, tilting her head. "It is best if he talks to you. It is not my place. Just give me Ares's location and call Grayson and I will go check on your friend." Pepper continued to talk to the two women as Justin picked up the papers that fell off Amy's desk. "Okay, it seems like he is located on Plum Island." Samara brought up the map. Plum Island is closed to the public and is run by the United States Department of Homeland Security, Amy added. How are you going to get on that island? We can't unless we have a Duke Oz. Amy asked. I have my ways. Thank you, ladies. Justin, come on. Justin stopped filing Amy's papers and waved to them before walking out. Chapter 15. Later that evening, Bri walked into her apartment to the surprise Ben was sitting on her couch. She tossed her purse on the bar counter and walked towards him. How did you get in here? You know what doesn't answer that. Bri sighed deeply as she kept her sarcastically depressed tone. I found him. Ben stood up as he watched her. Really? Where? Did you kill him? How did you do it? Kurt? Brandon? She bombarded him with questions. He is in the trunk, Ben replied. The trunk? Here? She watched Ben nod his head a bit. Bri's mood shifted. Her heart sank into her stomach. Yes, Brandon is in my car downstairs. Come on. Ben turned and Bri watched him walk towards the door. She was frozen in place. She didn't want to face Brandon. Deep down she was scared for some reason. Ben reached the door and turned to see her not following him. Well? He lifted a brow and Bri snapped out of her trance. She sighed deeply and followed Ben out of her apartment and down the stairs. As they drew closer towards where her ex was, Brynholder's hands started to get clammy. She was a warrior, a Valkyrie for God's sake, and she was feeling like a child. Ben could sense something was wrong. He paused before opening the trunk. Are you okay? This is what you wanted, right? He sold you out and split. I found him in the dock tricking girls and selling stolen merch. One of the girls he was trying to con was only 19. He explained, and this made her blood boil. Open it. Bri let her hands drop to her side, and she balled her fist. The trunk opened and there he was. Brandon was in the trunk, duct-taped and hog-tied. As soon as she saw him, Bri punched his face as hard as she could. This loosened his gags a little. Bri, hey look, I missed. But she punched him again in the face. You let me take the fall for you. You left me. She hit him again as hot tears ran down her face. She couldn't stop crying as the emotions took over her. She stopped hitting him and drew back. Bri, I am sorry. No, you are not. You are a con man scum. You tricked me and you continue to trick others. You are nothing but a lying. She cursed and hit him again. He should have been dead from the force and amount of hits she gave him, but of course, he was still alive. He is part of some merfolk colony. I took out a few of them. Ben explains. He then took out a gun and extended his hand towards her. As much as I want to kill him, I can't. Some clauses in my contract. I am magically bound to not kill him to void my deal with Kurt. Some fail safely. Ben nodded and raised the gun towards Brandon's head. The merman tried to beg for his life, but Ben did not care. He pulled the trigger and Bri turned the opposite direction. The emotions were so strong she couldn't stop the tears. Suddenly a gust of wind blew and Bri was knocked back. She could feel electricity shoot up and down her body as her soul re-entered her. Her eyes glowed amber before she fell. Ben quickly caught her before she hit the ground. As he held her in one arm, he closed his trunk with the other. He put the gun in his holster and picked Bri up bridal style. He placed her in his car and drove off to dump the dead supernatural man in his trunk. After disposing of his body, Ben drove to his friend's place. Ben, what brings you to my summer home, and who is this? Baron Hans asked as he looked over the unconscious female. She is a Valkyrie. Brynhild robber. I am sure you two will get along. He walked past Hans and inside his fancy place. Ben laid the still unconscious Valkyrie on the couch. The Baron walked behind Ben holding a glass of tea. I don't understand. He lifted a brow. You told me after your sister and father's death you were hunting Kurt the Nazi necromancer? Well, she used to work for him. She can help you. Hans' smile faded a bit. She knows of Kurt, worked for him. Look, I can't stay. I am helping out a guy Luca knows, Pepper Jenkins. Pepper, oh goodness, I haven't talked to him in years. Great fellow. Ben ignored Hans's excitement and walked towards the door. Well, you can handle this, I am sure. Ben then walked out and ran back to his car. He did not like being in the rich neighborhood Hans often stayed in. Hans and he went back had history. While on duty, the Navy SEAL and Hans team worked together often. The two often kept in touch, and Han often asked for information while he was in the States. Ben normally stayed long to chat with him, but he needed to check in on Justin and Pepper. He had not heard from them all day. Chapter 16. A young woman sat cuffed to the steel table. Her long dark hair was wrapped into a bun. She wore a white patterned dress, and it caused her bronze skin to shine. She wore heavy dark makeup with black lips. Under her lips was a tribal tattoo. It was a custom Polynesian style and it reached down below her chin. The mirror showed her reflection as she tried to communicate with anyone and possibly her boss. She quickly hushed when the judge walked in. Aries can't help you, and I'm sure he wouldn't if he could. Amy tossed the large pile of files down. Blessed mirror, plus if he really wanted to help you out, he would have. Amy wasn't lying. It took me a while to find you less alone and figure out what you are. Chloe Reed. Part of the Maori people of New Zealand. You are an aerator water nymph. Mother Kelly Reed. Father, an unknown fallen angel. Amy read her file out loud. Your mother, it is horrible what happened. I am sorry, Amy added. What do you know of that? Chloe hissed. I know it was horrible, and Aries milked that to get you to work for him. I understand. I almost went down that path. I may be a judge, but I know what you are going through. Chloe just glared at her, trying to keep her anger under control. The judge was right about Aries. He could get Chloe out if he wanted. Also, she could kill this judge and everyone in the building, but it would weaken her greatly. I want my lawyer, Chloe hissed. They won't help you. You are too deep into trouble. Only I can help you. Amy flipped the files open and showed her. Help us take out Aries. Amy looked at Joel, waiting for an answer. Lawyer. She yelled and banged her cuffs on the metal desk. Amy rolled her eyes and picked up her file. Fine. Amy then walked out. Chloe is a strange supernatural known as an aerator sea nymph. She could control liquids. Not just water, but anything that contains water. Chloe could freeze it, boil it, and let it flow. The possibilities were endless. The young girl had kept it a secret for as long as she could, but the cat jumped out of the bag when her mom was almost attacked by a mugger. Chloe flipped and removed all the liquid in his body, and he fell dead right there on the street. Luckily no one saw, but her mom freaked. Being the God-fearing woman, she wasn't a single parent. Her mother told Chloe to be careful, that God gave her this for a reason, and to use it to help others, but not to make them public. It worked for a couple of years. Chloe grew up, graduated, and even got a few jobs right out of high school. Starbucks, bartending, aquariums, even the pool cleaning business. She used her power under the norm's noses, Normal people as she called them, but soon that would end as well. After the death of Chloe's mother, Chloe started down a dark path. She got caught up with the wrong crowd. Becoming an assassin for a higher-ranking demon, Chloe became a feared and respected criminal, and one of the best assassins out there. Drowning, dehydration, choking on fluids were the nicer ways she killed people. It had been 6 months since Chloe's dark turn. After her mother was killed by human hunters, and even trying to kill her, she snapped. She knew she could no longer pretend to be what she was not, so she became the monster they saw her as. She had drained one human of all his fluids, and used them to drown the other. She then froze both and shattered them, covering her tracks. Chloe then started taking out others who crossed her, as well as helping other supernaturals in danger. Word spread of her deeds, and a few humans, as well as supernatural leaders, began to employ her. Her unique gift allowed her to take out people without a trace. Chloe's deeds got the attention of a high archdevil, the Greek god Ares. He convinced her to work for her by finding the ones who killed her mom. Chloe pledged her allegiance to the fallen angel, and she became one of his best employees. Her recent assassination is what got her in her current situation. The mark wasn't hard to find nor follow. Some humans who never paid his dues to the witch, and he was due for punishment. Chloe had been following him around the whole day, trying to figure the best way to do him in. She followed him into the gas station and parked on the other side of the pumps. It was the perfect opportunity, and she could not pass it up. Chloe slipped out of her car and started to fill it up with gas to blend in. The mark was doing the same across from her. She used her finger to move the gas to slowly slip out of his car and down to the concrete. It slowly made its way up the man's shoe and pants, soaking him. The man paid no mind as he chatted away on his cell phone. Chloe moved the gas up the man's pants leg and shirt, soaking him. The man finally felt the wetness and cursed, putting the nozzle back. He stumbled back and looked down at the gas that covered him. Chloe just needed a flame or spark now to finish the deed. Looking around, she noticed someone tossing a still light cigarette butt in the grass. Perfect, Chloe said as she watched the mark walk into the store. Chloe drove to the other store beside the gas station and used the soda in her cup. She made it snake in the grass towards the cigarette. The soda iced the end of the butt of the cigarette, and Chloe was able to roll it down and towards the gas station. The humans were too busy doing other things, such as talking on their phone and bustling about, to notice a cigarette butt rolling down the parking lot. The mark walked out still in his phone and unaware of his end. She forced the ice-covered cigarette butt to fly onto his shoe, where the gas was at its heaviest. The pant leg caught fire first and began to travel. Chloe used more gas to travel and make the small fire engulf into a huge fireball. The man dropped his phone and ran around screaming. Chloe put her car in reverse and drove out of there before the place became crowded with people and police. She picked up her own phone and texted Aries of the job completion. On her way back to her apartment, Chloe was apprehended by the Black Files agents. They arrested her, and now here she was, cuffed to a table. Chloe wasn't too worried though. She had not checked in with Aries in hours, so no doubt he would come looking for her. 30 minutes later, Judge Amy opened the door and glared at Chloe. "Come on." An agent entered and uncuffed her. "Where are we going?" Chloe asked. "You are leaving, but don't think you are off the hook. I still have building evidence against you. It is only a matter of time for you, Chloe." Amy crossed her arms as she watched the young woman walk past and towards the exit door. When she exited out the back of the Black Files building, she was greeted by her boss. "That was cute." Aries stood beside the exit and looked at her through his tinted glasses. "Well, I did try." Chloe shrugged a bit. Aries pushed off the pillar and walked to the little water demon, nymph, or whatever she was calling herself. He held out an envelope, wiggling it up and down. "Your next target, and payment." He grins as she slowly reaches out to take the envelope. "It should not be too hard for you?" he asked, placing his hands in his pockets. "No, sir." She slowly opened the envelope and glanced at the contents. "Oh, and stay clear of those judges, please. That is the last thing I need snooping around," Aries added as he watched her walk away. Chloe waved it off with her hand, and Aries let out a chuckle. She was a bit of a brat and acted like one of those cranky teenagers at times, but she was good at her job. Get the job done without incidents this time. Aries could sense Pepper was close, and he needed to stay under the radar. "I will get it done, boss." Chapter 17. That night, the crowded room made her feel a bit uncomfortable, but Chloe had a job to do. Some poor sod was on the hit list of the fallen angel, and the big boss hired Chloe to take him out quick and quiet, her specialty. No one suspected the quiet young girl, but under the surface was a raging storm. Chloe had been tracking the mail for hours, and her big break came when she showed up at one of the supernatural-owned casinos. The place where the mail likes to place bets and never pay them. She squeezed between people to get closer to the mark. The blonde-haired man sat at a blackjack table drinking and cutting up, acting as if he was a rock star. Chloe waited till he took another sip of his drink before her brown eyes turned blue. Her fingers circled close to her hips as she controlled the drink that started to choke the man. She watched as he fell backward, gasping and choking. Others ran past her to try and help the man, but it was in vain. The humans tried everything they could to help the man to breathe and stop choking, but the alcohol already filled his lungs, drowning him. Chloe waited till she was sure he was dead before backing up and walking out the exit doors. Joel walked a few blocks, but sensed she was being followed. She stopped suddenly and whipped around to face the man. "How long are you going to follow me?" Chloe spoke to the man. "Who sent you?" "The judges?" "Aries?" she asked, keeping her eyes on the large mail. "No, your father," the man answered. This got her attention. The tall and muscular male was of the same ethnicity as her, Polynesian. Was he her father? "I don't know anything about my father, never wanted to." She was curious but kept her guard up. She knew nothing of this man, nor anything about her father. Her mother never spoke of him, and she just assumed he was dead. "He wants to meet you." The large male spoke kindly but with a sense of purpose. "Fine, very well." Chloe could handle herself. She knew it would be trouble for whoever if they messed with the high archdevil Aries employee. Even without that high status, she could take care of herself. Chloe wanted to know if this was true, and if so, possibly find out more about who and what she was. The tall male turned and walked towards a black SUV. Chloe followed cautiously and waited for him to open the door. The man opened the back door and Chloe slid in. She took a deep breath and calmed herself. The unknown always made her a bit nervous. "And who are you?" she asked, keeping a straight face. "Kamaholi. But most call me Ka." Chloe lifted a brow. Ka sensed her confusion and explained who he was. "I am a shark shifter. I work for your father. He asked me to find you and bring you to him." Chloe listened intently to his explanation. "And how did you get mixed up with my so-called father?" she asked. Cal let out a chuckle. He was usually a laid-back guy, only serious when he needed to be. All water deities and spirits work for Poseidon. "I know it is a lot to take in. Hopefully, your father can explain more. It is his place, not mine." Ka was right, and Chloe kept silent for the remainder of the ride. They arrived at the harbor. Ka let Chloe out of the car, and she walked to the end of the dock, peering into the dark water. Ka stayed by the SUV, allowing them to have privacy. Suddenly the water parted and an older man with jet black hair and a well-dressed-up suit stepped out of the water and onto the dock. He was dry as a bone after just leaving the water. "I suppose you have a lot of questions about who you are, and even what you are." His deep husky voice broke the silence. Chloe kept quiet and glanced at Ka every now and then. "Your mother wanted you to have a normal life. She made me keep away from you." "Don't blame her. I agreed it was best as well. It is dangerous for a child of a greater deity like myself. Most of my children have passed or have had a difficult life." He rambled on. Chloe didn't really know what to think. It was her mother's choice, and she respected her enough not to get angry. She wasn't a child anymore, and she understood things differently. "The question I have is why now? Why do you reach out to me now?" she asked. "Well, I wanted to meet you and explain everything, and with the passing of your mother, I thought it best. Also, to let you know you are not alone." Chloe nodded. "Your mother was human and raised you as such, but I am sure you have grown into your powers and would like to know more. I want, if you would allow me to, teach you and invite you to visit my palace." Chloe was speechless. It was a lot to take in, and Poseidon could see that. "Think about it, for the time being. I want Ka to look out for you. Please, I don't need a babysitter." She frowned. No, just a mentor perhaps." Chloe let out a frustrated sigh. She knew they wouldn't take no for an answer. Across town, Amy knew she could not follow Chol herself. The judge was swamped with other cases. However, she remembered Pepper was in town. He and the two other hunters were tracking Ares, and with Chol being a minion of the fallen angel, Amy could get the men to look into their case for her. She tried to reach Pepper, but he did not pick up his phone. The judge then gave Ben a call. The chaser picked up the phone on the second ring. "Hello?" Ben did not recognize the number, but Samara had given Amy everyone involved with Pepper's numbers. "Mr. Davis, this is Judge Amy Gills. Pepper came by to see me today about Ares. Well, I might have a lead. There is a water nymph who works for Ares that I recently arrested. However, we had to release her. I would like you to keep an eye on her. Plus, I am sure she can lead you to Ares." Ben pulled into the parking lot of his apartment complex and put the car in park. "Go ahead with the information." Ben began to write down everything Amy told him. He then thanked her and hung up the phone. The chaser grabbed the bag of food and made his way into the apartment building. It had been a long day for him, and he was sure the same was true about Pepper and Justin's day. Ben entered his apartment to see Pepper and Justin talking. "Where have you been?" Justin asked. "I handled our Valkyrie problem." "Oh, and Hans says hello." Ben walked past Pepper. "You know the Baron?" the god asked. "Yeah, he is an old acquaintance." "Justin, come help me cook." Ben called out for the chunky soldier. Justin rose from the couch, and Pepper followed him into the kitchen. "Have you had any luck?" Ben asked. Judge Amy and her friend located Ares' base on Plum Island. Pepper explained. She was nice, Justin added. I was about to leave Justin there to help her file her papers. Pepper teased. Amy called me a few minutes ago. She has info on someone who works for Ares personally. She wanted me to look into Amy's friend. Samara wants us to check in on someone, so that is what I am probably going to do first before heading out to survey the island. Pepper explained his plans to Ben, while Ben looked for a pot under his cabinet. Sounds like a plan. You can take Justin with you again. You make me sound like a kid. I am a grown adult, and I can look out for myself. I also can help. Oh look, you got me Oreos. Justin dug the pack of Oreos out of the bag. Ben snatched them from him. After supper. And I want you to go with Pepper while I look for this girl. Justin frowned and sat at the small table. Hopefully this won't take long. The way things are going, I should have Ares under my boots by next week. Pepper chuckled. How long have you been chasing him again? Justin asked. Since the 60s. Pepper replied. Nothing is ever this easy. Ben spoke up. How do you plan on taking him down? Us three won't be enough. Ben asked. I am not sure yet. I am still thinking. Once I get a good look at his base, I can try and figure it out. Well, you need to figure it out soon. Even though you and Justin are strong like a judge with powers, we still are no match for Ares's, let alone the army he no doubt has. Ben turned around and looked Justin over in concern. We will figure this out. Let's just eat and get a good night's sleep. Pepper reassured his new friend. Chapter 18. Pepper and Justin woke up before the sun. The two quickly got dressed and headed out towards Samara's friend's house. He was supposed to check in on some woman named Natalia, but Pepper was none too happy about it. He had work to do. Pepper needed to get out to Plum Island to see how Ares had his base set up and the number of men he had with him. The demi did not have time to babysit. Okay, Justin, we will be in and out. I don't have time to play around with this today. We have a recon mission. Pepper explained, and he walked down the low-light sidewalk. Can we at least get breakfast? Justin asked. Seriously? You had a donut before we left. When I get nervous, I get hungry. You sound like a hobbit. Pepper was getting a bit annoyed with Justin's appetite today, but when he looked over at the chubby man's eye, he felt bad. Fine, but after we check in on this Natalia Rozanov, the two soldiers continued down the sidewalk until they finally caught a cab. It was around 7 o'clock when the two reached the place where she lived. Pepper paid the cab driver and the two men got out. They made their way into the apartment. Amy had texted him the code for the door to enter the building. As they walked up the few flights of stairs, to their surprise the Redeed was exiting her apartment. Natalia Rozanov? Pepper asked as he and Justin approached. Natalia spun around and quickly punched Pepper in the throat. The surprise caught him off guard, and the demigod fell back on his butt choking. Justin threw his hands up as her attention fell on him. No, miss. Samara and Amy sent us to check on you. Natalia lowered her hand and sighed. Sorry. I thought my uncle sent you. She watched as Justin bent down to help the still choking Pepper up. I was about to leave to prepare for my case. Some flirty drug dealers. She blushed a bit when she mentioned it. Justin eased up and smiled like a dork towards Natalia. My name is Justin Thomas. This is Pepper. Pepper grunted as he rubbed his throat. Let me get you an ice pack and maybe coffee? Yes, please. Justin smiled and followed the Redeed into her apartment. Why didn't Amy come down here? I know Sammy is busy in Texas, But Amy normally comes around every month. She was swamped when we went to see her, Justin replied. About what? Nat asked as she put a pot of coffee on. Justin had to speak for the both of them, but the happy-go-lucky soldier didn't mind. Pepper sat at Nat's table and brooded while nursing his throat. His eyes wandered around the apartment before settling on the table in front of him. It was littered with papers and folders. Pepper peeked through the first folder on top as he listened to Justin and Nat speak. A few legal documents were inside as well as mug shots. The first was Trevor Hoffman. The other Adam O'Grady. The vampire Eric paid him not to kill a few years back. He snatched the picture up and pointed at it and grunted. Justin and Nat turned to see what the commotion was. Excuse me, but those are legal documents. Lawyer-client privilege. Nat rushed over and snatched the picture back, slamming the folder shut. Pepper winced a bit, not wanting to get hit again. Sorry, I wish he had better manners. Justin just shook his head as Pepper gave him a death glare. I don't mean to be rude, but I have a case to work on, and if I want to keep my internship, I need to be there early. We didn't mean to take up your time, miss. We just wanted to make sure you were all right is all. Justin tried to calm her down. Nat eased up a bit and poured Justin a cup of coffee into a to-go cup. Here you go. Know that you see I am fine. May I go? She asked. Pepper rolled his eyes as he stood up. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the coffee. Allow us to walk with you and help you get a cab. Justin smiled. Natalia wanted to decline the offer, but the chunky and scruffy Justin was so kind and sweet. He reminded her of the Kung Fu Panda a bit. Sure. She sighed and grabbed her files and purse. Pepper walked out in front of them, still unable to speak. He was highly ticked off and just wanted to get this over with. He came to check in on this woman, and she almost damaged his throat. This tiny angry Russian girl wasn't one he wished to hang around. At least Justin's kind nature saved the day. The demigod didn't want to have to fight Nat, and Justin stepped in to ease the fiery Redeed's temper. Justin opened the cab door for Nat and waved at her like a dork as the cab pulled away. She was nice. He smiled and looked back at Pepper, who was giving him a death glare. Let's go. Pepper was finally able to speak, but just barely. Why were you fussing about and waving that picture around? Justin asked. Long story, but he was an old mark I was paid to kill, then paid off not to kill. Pepper stuffed his hands in his pockets as he walked down the cold streets of New York. By this time the sun was beaming overhead, and the bustle of people and cars was in full swing. Justin walked alongside him, sipping his coffee cheerfully. Where are we going again? Plum Island. Where is that? Past Long Island. We are going to need a boat. Good thing I know a guy. Who? The same guy Ben knows. Who? Baron Hans Dubveck. Who? Justin asked once more, and Pepper stopped dead in his tracks. Are you possessed by an owl or something? No. Why? You keep asking me. Who? Pepper was beyond aggravated, and he was taking it out on poor Justin. The big softy didn't care though. He was just happy to have his coffee and someone to talk to. Pepper talked more than Ben. Ben was the strong, silent type and wasn't much for conversations. Ben said Hans was in town, so I am going to give him a ring so he can help us out. I was reading into this island, and well, we will need all the help we can get. Why? So, you traded who for why? What? Justin was confused and looked up from his coffee and towards the fuming Pepper. Justin smiled and let out a chuckle. After Pepper got off the phone with Hans, And after acquiring a boat for their recon mission, Pepper explained to Justin what the island so said held. The small 3-mile island was said to be where the Pequot War was, which involved the Native Americans and Europeans. It is also said to be the first cannon fire between British and Americans in the Revolutionary War. Later it was a fort during the Spanish-American War and for both world wars. Naturally, Ares would calm a land so riddled with a war, no matter what size it was. In the 50s it was set up as a biological warfare research facility. Later, when Ares bought it out, the lab turned into one for the super soldier program, as Hans informed him. Ares and Kurt tried to continue the experiment